Burns.
Mr. Burns, I couldn't see him, but I had seen him earlier. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Longstreth?
If I could note, Mr. Smith wrote me a message and said he went to the wrong hotel, and he is here. He's just
Okay. Mr. Smith is on his way. I did hear that he had some flight delays that were out of his control. All right, so that's attendance, that's credentials and paperwork. The next item is the adoption of the agenda, which should be without any real discussion, I'm sure. Mr. Goldstein?
Mr. Chair, it came to my attention this morning while having breakfast with the opposition from Reno, Nevada, that he has an early flight.
Loyal opposition.
Loyal. Well, we shall see about that. He has an early flight today. So I would like to move at least a presentation from the Nugget in Reno to immediately following the Secretary's report or following the recess, whatever people prefer.
I will put it after recess only because I know that presentations usually take some setup.
For half an hour.
I'm assuming that that's without objection. 30 minutes without objection for a presentation from the Reno convention bid.
Nugget.
The Nugget convention. Is there another Reno bid coming?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll write Nugget if you want. It's a nice place. Okay, 30 minutes, and it's going to be after the recess, so not quite a time certain, but sort of. And
concurrently take 30 minutes off the COC agenda spot down below.
okay, so then the next agenda spot turns into 90. Okay. If there's no objection, I am going to strike the vice chair's report as he's not present. And also note on my copy that the secretary is Ms. Harlos, and I apologize for the typo. Other changes, Ms. Harlos?
Yes. I I left half of my brain in Colorado, but some reports I needed to send over, I've got to bug Mr. Harlos to send to me. So I would request to move the secretary's report and the historical committee report until first thing Sunday morning. Because there's some changes to the secretary report. I want to make sure Ms. Mattson has enough time to review.
All right, so is there any objection to moving the secretary's report and the historical preservation committee report to the beginning of the Sunday session?
Question. Is there going to be anything in the secretary's report that would inform us as to matters to be addressed?
Yes.
Okay.
No, not today.
Today?
Okay.
No, nothing today.
Okay, so without objection, we will move secretary and historical preservation to the beginning of the Sunday morning session.
And the convention presentations are after the first recess?
One of them.
Okay.
The Reno presentation is 30 minutes after the first recess.
Okay.
Other requests for changes to the agenda?
Let's see if I had anything else. Nope.
I know that there had been some email discussion about changes in order. Just to help sort of keep people to understand where we're at, there's about 13 plus hours of time on the agenda. We are not going to be in this room for 13 hours, or at least I will not. And so if we proceed with all of the things that are on the list and it takes all of the time, somebody will get to volunteer to be the gavel holder until we lose quorum. With all of that, is there anything that people would like to volunteer to take off the agenda? And if not, we can just power through. And this is a pretty good committee. We managed to get stuff done. But I want people to be clear ahead of time that there are some big rocks that we have to do. We need to adopt a budget. We ought to make some decision with convention presentations for people who came. And there was a lot of interest in having a fairly thorough staff report. So now I've got hands. I knew I would. So I'm going to go to Mr. Redpath, Dr. Lark, Ms. Bilyeu, and then was there another one over here? I thought it. Okay, Mr. Redpath.
You said you're not going to be in this room for 13 hours. Why is that?
I mean, I just have a flight that leaves in the early evening on Sunday.
Okay.
So, and we have an event tonight, so that creates a time certain departure from the room in order to make that event. So there's just so many hours in the time.
So many hours in a day.
Indeed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Lark.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think the DCC report, it's been circulated. There is a part of the exit that would be considered an executive session. So my feeling is we could probably reduce the EBCC report from 15 minutes to 5 minutes.
All right. Without objection, we'll do that.
It is.
It is 5.
Oh, it is already 5. Well,
Not on the document that I'm looking at.
On the paper one.
oh, did I change it in?
Let me get your paper.
Yeah, the one I had didn't.
You read your mind,
I might have changed in the second draft because of precisely that.
The notebook that Ms. Harlow
Yeah.
has 15 minutes.
Okay, well-
That's what I'm receiving from that.
Sorry about that.
No, quite all right.
Ms. Billiou.
Move to strike regional reports from the agenda. We've already submitted copies of those. Those are available on the email list. And obviously all of us are available for questions should anyone have them.
Second.
Is there an objection to striking regional reports? Mr. Goldstein?
No objection.
Okay. Mr. Redpath, is that an
It
objection?
matters, it's at the end, it matters, it's a matter of time. I do object, I mean, if we
Okay.
can drop it at the end if we so choose, so I do object.
All right, so we'll proceed to a vote on striking regional reports. All in favor of striking them from the agenda, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 to 4. They will be struck from the agenda at this time. It would be in order if we do have time to move to bring them back. Mr. Goldstein.
I would like to just ask a question, is anybody present to give a report for any of these 4 special committees?
I believe the Membership Support Committee, Mr. Requero.
Yeah, that's pretty wide report.
Then I would move we strike the 3 that don't have somebody here present to give a report.
All right, so blockchain, no report. Youth engagement? Is that still happening?
Disengagement.
Dustin just emailed saying that he can give a verbal report.
I have.
Yeah, we have like a very small verbal report, but it's nothing major.
Okay, so would there be any objection to striking?
Point of personal privilege.
Yes, Mr.
The
Fish-
live stream is out.
The live stream is out. Mr. Kraus, Mr. Burns, or Mr. Fishman will work on that. I'm not going to delay us for it because we're still adopting agendas. So I would at this point strike blockchain and strike convention voting process, move youth engagement to 5 minutes, and leave membership support 15.
Second.
Okay, so hearing no objection, blockchain struck, voting process struck, youth engagement 5, membership support still 15. Anyone else seeking to be recognized with regard to the agenda?
I'm sorry, that was blockchain struck,
Blockchain struck?
the convention voting struck.
Yep. 5 minutes for youth engagement, 15 minutes for membership support.
Thank you.
And membership support is not required to take their entire 15. Other changes or modifications to the agenda? Ms. Harlow?
Well, it's a potential suggestion if we, at the end of today, perhaps do nominations for platform. I can do an OPA vote ballot overnight and email it out, and that could, for both credentials and platform, and that could make, and as long as there's no ties, that could substantially reduce those times.
Okay. I think we can still do that because the elections are not set until tomorrow's session. But you would like to do nominations at some point today?
Well, I'd like everyone to have overnight to vote.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, do nominations, and I'll set up the OPA vote. And
Okay, so I think what I would say is immediately prior to adjourning or going into executive session today, we will open up nominations for both credentials and platform formally.
and awards, I guess.
And awards for the other 2. Take any nominations that were not previously submitted in the packet, close out those nominations so the ballots can be prepared for discussion and voting tomorrow. So,
May I suggest we put that just before the budget, because part of the
That's
budget
probably- yep,
will
that's-
be in executive session.
okay.
In which we could do at the very end of the budget, so the guests could be
So
free for the rest of the
nominations for committees. immediately prior to the adoption of the 2020 budget, Part 1, for 5 minutes. I would note for the recording, Mr. Smith has arrived. Sorry about the travel difficulties. And welcome. There's donuts, and they sometimes help with those sort of things. Any other changes to the agenda?
How long nominations for committees?
5 minutes, because most of them have been submitted previously in writing. So really it's just formalizing, making sure we have the correct list, and allowing any nominations from the floor that may have come up as people.
You would not like to have people speak at all?
We potentially, but I think it would maybe better to do that one-on-one in the interest of time. We can, there is also a time on the agenda tomorrow when we elect for discussion. So unless you want to move all of the discussion to today.
Well, but everyone will have voted.
They will. So
I would move to amend, Mr. Chair, to make that 15 minutes with a maximum of 1 minute each
Per
for each
speaker?
person who would like to speak.
that seems appropriate. 15 minutes. I anticipate that the elections, then I can move both of them to be 5 minutes each, since it would probably be an OPA vote overnight, and then we can get that time back.
Sir?
Yes, Mr. Redpath.
The OPA vote deadline be same noon tomorrow? If we're doing it
I mean,
electronically, I don't think it has to be 9 a.m.
It doesn't. It could be before the first recess.
request,
I mean, you want a time certain.
I request a.
Then let's make it 10. Because then we're all here, we're all in the room. Those of us with computers have our computers up, but it's not noon, because we might get to it before then. Hope springs eternal. All right, so, and we'll reiterate that this evening, that it's a 10 a.m. deadline.
By the way, our 10 minutes is up.
Is it? All right. Are there any further suggestions for changes to the agenda at this time? Okay, Ms. Mattson?
No changes to agenda, but if we're going to be able to vote overnight, do we have the awards committee nominees packets?
Yeah, there's only 2, and it was carryover from the last meeting, but it's in the OneNote now.
It's in the OneNote now. Okay.
Dr. Lark?
Yes, since our meeting in July, another person has indicated an interest in serving on the awards committee. And I don't know how we want to handle that.
I think we would just technically nominate them and speak to it as much as necessary this evening. Mr. Redpath, I do know we're out of time. Was that what you were reminding me of?
I was going to move to extend, be fastidious about it.
I'm seeing no further discussion about the agenda, so is there any objection to adopting the agenda as we have modified it? Hearing none, the agenda will be adopted. The next item is the report of potential conflicts of interest. Ms. Harlos.
I hope everyone has sent me, a bunch of people did, so if you would take a final look in OneNote at that list to make sure yours is correct, but not only just yours, the purpose of it also is that you're aware of your colleagues' potential conflicts as well. So if that's good, that's good. So it's in OneNote. I have updated it as of the last.
Mr. Redpath.
I should add, Madam Secretary, I didn't do this. I've been appointed to run the Illinois Petition Drive in 2020.
Okay, I'll get that on there.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Bishop Henchman.
I'm hired by a law firm, and law firm has lots of lawyers and lots of clients, and so they required me to have the chair execute a document acknowledging that there are potentials for conflicts of interest, and that the LNC is now added to the firm's conflicts database. So if anybody ever tries to hire one of our lawyers to sue the LNC, it'll now be flagged for the LNC, and then vice versa. So Mr. Hall reviewed the document before the chair signed it, and I'm sure we can provide copies if anybody wants to see it. It's noted in Ms. Harlow's reports.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just a reminder, please, to send me your Sunday leave times, even if it's NA.
Oh, yes. So if anyone has not sent Ms. Harlos their Sunday leave times, please do, just so she can have an idea of when we would lose quorum, or see her at a recess. All right, any other conflicts of interest that were not noted? Hearing none, we'll proceed to the chair's report. I did submit a written report. It should be in your OneNote. I need to figure out how to get into my OneNote. I will find my copy of it. There was one item I left off of the chair's report. It was just an error. I participated in Cato's monthly debate series, Cato Unbound, in which I advocated for libertarians who believe in our principles that they ought to be part of the Libertarian Party and not align themselves with either of the two other parties. I think I submitted 4 essays over the course of the month. It's available online if anyone wants to read it. Some people liked it, some people didn't. Dr. Lark?
Mr. Chairman, just a point of personal preference. When I presume WRLR is either a TV or radio station. Might be useful to know where that is.
Oh, that one is in Illinois, but I will in the future try and note that.
And was it TV or radio?
I believe it was radio.
Thank you.
I think Mr. Phillips, no, he wasn't on. It was, I can't remember who I was on with. It's a couple of other Illinois libertarians.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there questions? Hearing none. Dr. Lark?
Just, when you invited Dr. Paul to attend I assume this is Dr. Ron Paul.
It is Dr. Ron Paul.
I suppose I should make that clear.
I would have said eye doctor.
It was just an invitation you did. Did you offer him any sort of benefits or emoluments or anything like that?
So I have the actual conversation I had, and Mr. Turney was actually right close to me at the time, I think, was to invite him to come to our convention. It is only just across the state. I know he doesn't travel as much. I have been authorized by the Convention Oversight Committee to offer him, I believe, at least a banquet +1, and potentially I believe there's a donor who's willing to cover a room as well. I don't think I've offered anything else. I have not officially offered anything else. He was tentatively positive on the thing, but did not seem to want to commit in the hallway outside of a session he had to speak at, which I totally understand.
Thank you.
And I also, that trip was extra fun because Ms. Bilyeu and Ms. Congdon put together a very nice fundraising event in Houston the day after the symposium in Lake Jackson. Mr. Hayes.
Just to clarify, I've offered personally to provide Dr. Paul a welcoming committee if he attends the convention. Mr. Michael Chastain has offered to confirm that he will cover a suite for Mr. Paul if he shows up, if he comes to the convention. And also, for any former POTUS nominee of the Libertarian Party that is still with us, they are invited to be the guests of the Convention Oversight Committee and the party at our gala.
Okay. I also want to highlight one thing from my report. I did, Mr. Hall was arguing in court in Texas on a ballot access case on the day that we had the amicus discussion facilitated by Heritage about the IJ case that is going to the Supreme Court. US v. Salgado, Mr. Hall has submitted a supplemental report to the council's report. I do anticipate we will decide whether or not to participate in that on during the council's report, but I just wanted to let everybody know I was on that call and I can answer some questions that maybe he would not be able to answer. Any other question, Mr. Phillips?
I have a question. Just you mentioned that you were on that radio show and you did an excellent job. I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that because I did listen.
Thank you. Hearing no other questions, Mr. Hewitt? Or
What? No, I was scratching my I never went up to the top of my head because I bought stuff.
All right. With that, we will then move next to the treasurer's report, Mr. Hagan.
Okay, sent out the October end of month financials this week. The current monthly reserve at the end of October was $112,537, or that did include $151,000 of deferred convention revenues. If you're worried about further, any questions on the budgets? I have a motion I also want to make on the policy manual.
I see no questions. Go ahead and make your motion.
All right, I'd like to move to amend the policy manual, section 2.03, subsection 3. So page 31 of the policy manual, where it says, no budget shall be submitted to the LNC for approval that exceeds 110% of the actual revenue over the immediate past 12 months prior to the date of the budget approval. Change that to read, no budget for an odd numbered year shall be submitted to the LNC for approval that exceeds 110% of the actual revenue of the most previous odd number year. No budget for a presidential election year shall be submitted to the LNC for approval that exceeds 110% of the actual revenue of the most previous presidential year. And no budget for a midterm year shall be submitted to the LNC for approval that exceeds 110% of the actual revenue of the most previous midterm year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Goldstein. Would you like to speak to your motion, Mr. Hagan?
Certainly. Actually, we've usually been violating this policy manual every other year because presidential years and midterm years, we have conventions, which increases the revenue and expenses we have. In presidential years, we also have a lot more in revenues and expenses on ballot access. So really, our budget follows a 4-year term cycle, and this changes just the policy manual. So we're still not making unrealistic expectations and revenues, but still matches what we be for that 4-year cycle.
Ms. Mattson?
So I completely understand the reason for this. We do have those kind of cyclical fluctuations. Kind of wordy, but I get why there's 3 sentences, because there's kind of 3 different types of years. But I'm going to propose an amendment that would be simpler. Plus, if you notice the first sentence, ties odd numbered years to 2 years prior, but the other ones tie it to 4 years prior. So that's a little discontinuity there. So my proposed amendment is 1 sentence. No budget shall be submitted to the LNC for approval that exceeds 115% and bumping it of the actual revenue of the year 4 years prior. And I'll email that language to the secretary. But it gives us 115% because we are doing a 4-year back comparison. So give a little more room for breathing there, but just make it simpler.
Is there a second for the amendment?
Second.
There's a second for the amendment. Would you like to speak to the amendment more, or is that good?
Nothing further.
Would anyone like to be recognized to speak against the amendment? Dr. Lark? Or speak on the amendment, I should say.
I actually, I don't want to get too picky. I would say if we're talking 4 years, it's probably 120% because
If there's no objection from the committee, we'll amend the amendment to 120% without any further action. Hearing no objection from the committee, so the amendment is 120% of 4 years prior. The previous motion, or the motion being amended, was 110% of odd numbered years, presidential years, or midterm years. Anyone else to speak on the amendment? As a request for information, do you know, Ms. Mattson, how this would work and whether or not this would have brought our previous budgets, especially in presidential years, into compliance?
I haven't done that evaluation.
Okay.
I mean, we're not complying with what we have now.
That is part of the reason we're even discussing it, so point taken. Ms. Bilyeu?
So to be clear, for this time, the budget that is gonna be proposed or passed this time around for 2020. If this goes into effect, then cannot be more than 120% of the 2016 budget.
Correct.
Wait, sorry. I'm gonna go, Dr. Lark was first, Mr. O'Donnell, then Mr. Hagan.
Waiting for.
No, it doesn't get out of order.
Just, I'd like to note that this is discussing, or this is pertinent to the submission of the proposed budget. It does not have anything to do with what we can adopt. This is simply what we submit for the consideration of the LNC.
Okay. Mr. O'Donnell?
I was gonna clarify that it's 120% of the actual revenue from 2016, not the budget.
Correct. I believe it says the revenue.
Yes, here's the
Actual
Ms.
revenue.
Matson's.
Yes, actual revenue. Mr. Hagan?
Dr. Lark took my words.
Mr. Redpath? Okay. Everyone thinks alike on this committee.
For once.
Get what we encourage. And just as a note, you know, we have in the past submitted budgets that did not meet with the previous policy manual. We've adopted them, and we're allowed to adopt them. It's a rule without a penalty or any teeth, but it's better if our rules track what we do than if they don't. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Are we prepared to move to a vote on the amendment? Seeing no further discussion, we will move to a vote on the amendment. Is there a request to have that be roll call, or can we just do show of hands for the amendment?
Is there an objection?
I was going to ask for without objection, but I thought there would probably be one because there was actually interest in the first. So I wasn't trying to get in front of it, but I will ask: is there any objection to adopting Ms. Matson's amendment?
As amended by law.
Yeah, yes. Wow, okay, so hearing no objection, we'll adopt the amendment. Is there any objection to adopting the amended proposal, which would have the policy manual section 2.03 subsection 3 changed to have the requirement be 120% of the actual revenue from 4 years prior? Hearing no objection to that, it is adopted without objection. All right, Mr. Hagan, proceed with your report.
Had nothing else.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Hagan? Ms. Mattson?
I have a question, but please take to the secretary, please take the apostrophe out of.
Okay.
No questions for Mr. Hagan? Okay.
Talking about after years?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, the next item.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Mr. Redpath?
Yes, there were some in this report, there were some years stated January to December, not January to October, in the October report, which came out a day or two or three ago. And I take it that is meant to be January through October, where it says January through December. And I just want to make sure that those numbers are year to date. There were years, 2019 was lined up versus 2018, 2017, 2016. I just wanted to make sure that those 2019 numbers were 10-month numbers and they were 12-month numbers in the prior years. Is that what's going on there?
Right.
Okay.
And Mr. Kraus will confirm. I do believe it is 12 months for the prior and 10 for the current. Is that right?
If you are talking about, are you talking about the graph?
No, I'm talking about financial statements.
On the financial statements year to date through October 31st.
Okay, all
Right,
right, I
but-
just want to make sure that it was 10 months versus 12 in
Well-
previous years.
Yes.
That's the page you're talking about, yeah, actually,
Okay.
it's the 10 months.
Okay.
Just real quick, because I just got confused. I believe what has been confirmed is that for all prior years that have actually gone through the space-time continuum to December, those are 12-month numbers, and we are comparing 10-month numbers or year-to-date numbers against full years. Is that right, Mr. Kraus?
It depends on what report you're referring to, that's why I asked. But if you're looking at the one that is comparing 2017 to 2019, both are year-to-date through October.
Oh.
So if you look at that comparison report, if you're looking at the graph, then the graph is a projected year to, through the entire year. I'll be more clear in future reports to have the dates.
Okay.
there.
Other questions? But this, well, then I'm gonna ask another question. The statement of operations, that one has Jan through December.
Yeah, that's year to date.
Okay.
Through October.
That should be, yeah.
And then, yep, okay, I see it.
That's when I saw that.
And then the comparison, the 19 to 17, has both a 10-month comparison and a 12-month comparison, but the 12-month comparison is projected?
No, both are, the 2017 and 2019 are both through the end of October.
Okay,
Apples to apples.
all right,
And I'll make that more clear in the future. Thank you.
appreciate it. Any other questions for the treasurer? Now hearing none. The secretary's report has been deferred until tomorrow. We are scheduled for a 10-minute recess. I would inquire, is the representative from the Nugget available and ready to set up in 10 minutes? Yes,
May I
Mr.
inquire,
Redpath?
When does the Nugget representative have to depart?
I believe the flight is at 2, and so the departure from here should be no later than probably 12:30. So, the Nugget representative is prepared to set up. We will take a 10-minute recess while that setup is happening, and we will resume at 10:42 local time.
No,
9:42. Right now it's 9:41.
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, I did a...
9:52, you mean?
Yes, 9:52 local time. I will go and
I want that for our house.
That's
And the circus name or your medallion.
very good. He's good. Brown. He's good when he does. He's happier on these days that this part is He's finally starting to accept. What's the prayer that he's accepting from? And that's all. And at the same time, he's looking into his family, how he can get it Exactly. So that's the next step. So I got to get him out of the house. He's pursuing it. Finally got him. I told him he's looking for the brewing thing. I said we got to do something for brewing. Don't tell me. I don't care what it is. It's brewing. It's research and recipe. We got to do something. So he actually is doing it. It's good. In a good way, and that's my thing too. Because I'm like, I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to push it too hard because I can do the other direction. He's good. And me, I cannot wait for this trip to be over because after this thing is crucial too. 14 days of rest. And then I'll have things to
Right. Right. I need to get the video downloaded. Well, not downloaded, but I need
It's a micro USB regular USB.
They're working, they already have a solution.
Okay.
So don't worry about it.
Well, let me grab it back.
Yeah, it's better.
Oh, did you give it back to me?
No, it's better.
Okay. The screen is working. Sign off right now.
I just refreshed it. Oh my God, I'm really. They've been dropping. Except that.
Two bio breaks. Yeah. Man, these donuts are fancy. These are bougie donuts. I'm gonna have to get one. I don't want that. Smiles, huh? Hey, it's good to see you. No, I moved to Phoenix, but yes. Okay. I know. My new job. New job. Riding Hawaiian Airlines.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hey, that was a good catch.
Lord Jesus. Ooh, good job, King. Glad I lost that weight.
Still wow.
Yeah. No. Yeah. My background's in software engineering.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So good to see you, though. I love all the stuff y'all do. Especially you, though. My heart really lies with it.
How loud is this?
Because we have 50 years.
It's okay right here, I don't know.
In this room with people would be easier to hear.
Right now, Ken.
I'd love to see that.
Okay, wait a minute, Dr.
I
Mark.
didn't know, I moved to AC, and they have this whole.
You're not Dr. Mark, you're
Especially, you know how it is with data for Easter parties?
Oh,
They're even minor parties got it.
Oh.
You have to have
Oh, they have the
precinct.
precinct caucus to let people go to the county.
I have to go get signatures. To become a committee person, I have to run on a primary ballot to, all this stuff. I'm like, you have to get like, you have to have like like 500 people for a statewide, like they decide the precincts. You might only have one libertarian in that whole precinct for, society they do, about 0.86%. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I wonder how other states are. Difficult to organize?
There are some like that.
Georgia was most of
I mean, Nevada, I feel so spoiled because they pick the size of the committee.
We're not down, once
They can pick any of that state, they have 4 required
I told her not to
officers.
bring anything.
Kind of like to tell us, give us your list of candidates.
You know what, Joe?
Okay.
And a certificate of nomination, which I got to do. I was so glad I sent to the presidential library, which is a certificate of nomination. And it's all notarized and all that, send it into the Secretary of State. Who's the only person who's friendly to us in the entire state. Well, her and Ron Connect was. He wrote the second one. One is about. We,
You have to read the form field? You have the racetrack.
A lot of people get asked, like, how do you go out with the
Create a page, drive, how many affiliates we don't have enough to start with. And to get people, lead generation page, basically landing page, to get the sign-ups and then give them the, it's like a regular landing page. Sign up here, download the free, they get the count affiliate page. That we make sure we have a WordPress, like
you don't have like a place to set a training class.
Right, we're looking at that.
Okay, the caucus is gonna pay, it's already got one with Moodle online. It's paying for it. It's gonna be free and have the content you want. I think that passes the 1/3.
I thought we already got Moodle installed. What's that?
Is it set up yet already? Yeah, we looked into doing our own Moodle on like an Azure cloud or something, and we decided, that's so much work. So the cloud basically
So I don't know if we can think of
It's on the list.
No, that's awesome.
Another thing.
But something that
Dan was talking about it.
yeah, no, obviously, I don't know how it's all stuff
Yeah, I know Florida has a good one. I was going to request them. They've already had a good time. So some of those things, I could share. We'll get there. It's all on the list.
All the things we do.
Also, we got. Yeah. So we have, if states are on the Sierra, we can, the state can add any county user. So then we have county.
You said 10:52.
Till I was corrected. It is 9:44 local time. We will resume. If people can take their seats, we will proceed to a presentation from the Nugget in Reno. And just as an aside, for those of you who have presided over hearings or might want to preside over hearings, despite whatever your feelings are on the partisan nature of them, if you watch the House Intelligence Committee's hearings, Chairman Schiff is actually very good at parliamentary procedure. And it's instructive for those of you who would like to be better at this sort of thing. Mr. Redpath.
Do they use Robert's rules, or do they have their
No,
own rules?
they adopt their own rule. And one of the games that's been played is members of the minority party know what the rule is. The rule is less than a paragraph. And yet make hay of trying to do something that is counter to the rule
Mr. Chairman, you mean politicians may not actually follow the rules scrupulously, or may not?
They may, in fact,
Yes.
be playing other meta games rather than the actual business of the committee. I would instruct everyone, Federalist 65 is very illuminating on how this sort of thing works. And a good read, a little turgid, but... All right, so now I think everybody is mostly back in the room.
Can I tell them what I'm handing out? It's
Uh,
related.
yes, okay. There are going to be handouts distributed, so if you guys just wait 1 second while they get handed out, because I don't want there to be any distraction while you're presenting.
Brief explanation. This is a lot of historical data for our convention sites paired up with the proposals that we're going to be looking at today. So this is data from the sites we actually used for the years 2012 through what we're contracted in 2020. And in the last three columns, there's 2 proposals on 2022 and 1 proposal on 2024. So these are side-by-side comparisons of specs of the hotels and the bids and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm handing out.
So those will go around. Ms. Billiou, I think, is offering to help you, Ms. Mattson, on the other side. All right. So, yes, Mr. Goldstein.
I might also point out that when the Convention Oversight Committee considers bids, these are
Thank you.
just a few of the parameters that we consider when we get 158 bids down in and narrowed down to the 2 that you're going to see today. So not everything that we talk about is in these charts.
All right. I think most of the reports are distributed, and with that, Mr. Hayes, I'm going to turn it over to you since you know all the players. I'm also going to move out of my seat so that I can watch. Before I do, Mr. Redpath.
30 minutes for this?
30 minutes, and time will start after Mr. Hayes starts introducing.
And if I may request, kind of like, I'll do like a minute intro.
Tiny.
Start the time when they start. But,
All right.
So, thank you all for this. This is Denise Bosman. She's from the Reno Tahoe Convention and Visitors Bureau. This is Greg Weinbender. He's the senior sales manager at the Reno Nugget. Just to give you a little background, we went through a lot of different bids. We had people, hey, this one looks good. We find something in there as we dug into it that wasn't bad. And honestly, when I did a site visit with Mr. Weinbender, he kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way because he said, you know, what about this? Don't worry about it. We're going to work it out. Well, when I finally told him, hey, give us a contract, which was, I don't know, was it 2 weeks ago? He had one to me in 45 minutes, and they are the only hotel that has, at this point, managed to complete getting approved by the COC and for their contract, and Oliver Hall, our counsel, and actually I think when I talked to Oliver about it, he referred to their contract as a pleasure. But anyway, with that, I'm going to turn it over to these guys and let them do their thing.
Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Denise Bosman. I'm with the Reno Tahoe Convention Authority, and we're excited to be here today. What we're going to start off with first is we'd like to share our video to kind of get you excited about Northern Nevada.
actually had some sound to it, some verbiage about being a rebel rouser and so on and so forth. I'm not quite sure why that didn't show up on there. But anyway, again, we're excited at the opportunity to host your national convention in 2022. And some of the reasons to be inspired by Reno Tahoe is basically our fantastic weather. We have 300 days of sunshine. We're a year-round destination with so many things to do. We have 50 golf courses, and we have 15 ski resorts for you all to enjoy. And of course, you can't forget about Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe is 45 minutes from Reno, and it is just totally magical. Imagine sitting there on the shoreline, 70 degrees weather, and looking up at the snow-capped mountains. It is just spectacular. Northern Nevada is also a 4-hour drive from the San Francisco Bay Area and Napa Valley, and we're a 3-hour drive from Yosemite National Park. So I think this is a great opportunity for your convention attendees to actually go visit some of our national treasures when you're at Reno for your 2022 National Convention. With all the revitalization, you're not just confined to casinos and shows. The area boasts trendy restaurants, boutique stores, art galleries. We have an extensive distilling, craft distilleries, and also craft brewing scene. And you definitely don't want to miss our National Automobile Museum. You could actually do an off-site luncheon or reception there. It basically takes you down memory lane to see all the coolest automobiles throughout history. Northern Nevada is capturing lots of Fortune 500 companies like Tesla, Amazon, and Apple. They're all eager to take advantage of our large tax breaks that we have. We also have a Tier 1 university. And I do believe this would probably be a perfect opportunity for you all if you wanted to get some corporate or academic speakers. You may want to even perhaps invite the founder and CEO of Amazon, who's a fellow Libertarian, to be your keynote speaker of Amazon. Go back. There, back. And of course, we're back at Lake Tahoe. The bottom line is it's just a must-see. Have any of you been to Lake Tahoe? Yeah. Is it fantastic or what?
It is.
So for those of you that haven't been there, like I said, it's so close to Reno. You could come in pre or post convention, and it's just a magical place to be. So start thinking about who you want to take to Lake Tahoe when you're in Reno in 2022. Getting to Reno. We have direct flights from New York, Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, Minneapolis, Phoenix, and many more. We have over 50 airports nationwide that offer non-stop or one stop into Northern Nevada or Reno. Plus, remember, we're only a half day's drive from Northern California. The other thing to consider is, I don't think, when I travel, you know, when you get off the plane, grab your bags, by the time you're in your hotel room, what is it, maybe about an hour and a half later? When you arrive in Reno, you will be in your hotel room within 20 minutes from getting off the plane, checking your bags, because we are close to everything and it's a very fast and convenient airport. This one I thought you all might find interesting. Nevada is consistently one of the top states for personal freedom. The Libertarian Party of Nevada is the third largest political party in the state of Nevada. Thank you. We have no personal income tax or corporate income tax. Thank you. Gun rights are extensive and have generally gained over time. And I have a handout for that if people have more questions about that. I do my homework. And Nevada is one of the top states for alcohol freedoms. Do I get a woohoo on that one? Yes, yes it is. Why Reno Tahoe? Affordability and value. Our food and beverage is 20% below the national average. It's easy accessible with 120 flights and 23 nonstop destinations. We have year-round outdoor recreation, award-winning restaurants and entertainment, and the bottom line is a professional team that wants to earn your business, wants to work with you to make sure you all have a successful 2022 convention. So thank you for this opportunity. Does anyone have any questions for me before I turn it over?
Mr. Nana.
Yes, sir.
I just had one question. Somebody on the convention committee had brought up the problem that people under 21 might not be able to book a room in Nevada.
This is true. You have to be 21 or older to book a reservation. As I was explaining to Daniel, I think there's workarounds on all that. So if one of the people in the party booked that reservation and made that reservation, actually checked into that room, their guests are their guests. So again, we're just going to have to make a workaround with that. But yes, 21 is the age to check into a casino hotel.
Dr. Lark? First of all, a comment. I think you're actually understating just how beautiful Lake Tahoe is.
Yeah.
It really is stunningly
Thank
beautiful. The point, I noticed that at least from the Washington DC area, there don't seem to be any direct flights. Do you know if any of the airlines are planning to bring direct flights either from BWI or Dulles or DCA to the Reno area?
I know that they're talking about it through the airport authority. I am feeling, or we are feeling that by 2022, with the increase in direct flights and air travel to Reno, that I think we will, especially with the corporations that have moved in. We get weekly reports from the airport authority that I'd be more than happy to share with everyone, you know, on maybe a monthly basis or something as we move forward.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, for people who are coming from places that may not have a direct to Reno, what's the flight time to bounce through Vegas up to Reno?
Flights from Vegas are about 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Okay,
So it's your layover time plus your time to get there.
Okay.
I currently handle most of the accounts on the East Coast, New York, Washington DC, all the way down through Florida, and anything that touches the water to Texas. And yes, when I go to DC, I fly into Nashville, and I usually go through Dallas, and it probably total travel time is about 6-7 hours, somewhere in there. I'm used to taking 2 flights to the East Coast. It's okay for me. But again, you know, most of your people are going to connect through Chicago, through Dallas, through Atlanta. You know, that nonstop direct flight from New York has just been a godsend for us, and it's just, it's increasing all the time. I live in Nevada. I appreciate your comments about Lake Tahoe. It is my playground. It's fantastic. But the flights are going to be probably the biggest issue that we face, bringing your national convention to us. I think we're going to save you a lot of money on your room rates. We're going to save you a tremendous amount of money on your food and beverage. We've increased our rebate to the convention so that we could compensate for some of these costs. And I think, again, what Denise was trying to point out is that when you come to Lake Tahoe, when you come to Northern Nevada, you have so much at your disposal. Don't come for 3 days and attend a convention. Don't come for 4 days and attend a convention. Come for 6 days, come for a week, bring your family, and go enjoy some of the things that are there. Because again, you can take a train to San Francisco and go see the sights. You can go to Yosemite. You can go to Napa Valley. There's some wonderful, wonderful attractions. And if you're there, don't hesitate to take advantage of it. We're all busy people, but our personal lives are very, very important. So let me tell you a little bit about the hotel that you're going to be staying at. What's that? Well, Denise can do it. So we want to welcome you. Nevada is called the battle-born state. And the reason why that is because during the Civil War, we became a state. That was back in 1864. And so we go by the battle-born state. We're not fighters. We don't carry, you know, missions of hate, but we are a full, complete concealed carry state. So this is the Nugget Hotel. This is looking back from Victorian Square. In Victorian Square, you have 20 restaurants, a beautiful new community being evolved. We just built an 8,500 seat amphitheater. But in this tower here, you have 600 rooms, and in this tower here, you have 800 rooms. On the 5th floor, which is up here, you have an Olympic-sized pool, a health facility, and a couple small banquet rooms where you can do receptions and catered events. The 3rd floor is more meeting space. You're not going to be in use for that. But on the 2nd floor, which is connected by these 2 buildings, you take your elevator down to the 2nd floor, and your entire convention is on that floor. There's nobody else there. There's no other guests. There's no slot machines. There's no smoking. It's just a perfect environment for you to be self-contained and do and handle your business objectives and talk about your platform. So this is our grand ballroom. This is 34,500 square feet. It's divisible by 2. It is ample space for all of your general session needs, including staging, lighting, screens, all your AV needs. We can also turn this room in a couple hours if we need to use it for a larger banquet. Just all depends on what your final agenda really turns into, but that's a great meeting room and it's all there for you. These are some of our breakout rooms where we can do 200 to 300 people. Of course, we can do smaller. This particular ballroom is divisible by 5 and it's 15,000 square feet. So plenty of space for you to break out. Outside of the grand ballroom, we have these nice little sitting areas, and I think that's important to today's conferences. People like to get out of the meetings and congregate, discuss personal issues, kind of network together. So that's available for you. This is a breakdown of our meeting room chart, and it is also in this brochure that I gave you. So if anybody has any questions about space needs, if you want to grow, you have plenty of space. If you want to go through that, you have that chance. This is an example of how we set up some of our banquet space. Our owner just infused about $1 million to the hotel with all brand new chairs, tables, linens, silverware, glasses, plates, brand new bars, brand new reception tables, which is something we really needed. And if you look around to some of the hotels that are out there, boy, we beat up this stuff pretty bad. So this is our front desk. We have 20 stations. Your guests are going to come in and have easy access and quick access to their guest rooms. That's been newly remodeled itself. Part of our $75 million infusion of cash from our new owner is our brand new guest rooms. So this is what we call our modern lodge decor. They're very spacious. They have desks. Each of the rooms have refrigerators. They all have data ports here where you can plug in multiple devices. So it's new, state-of-the-art, and very timeless. Again, this is another example of the spacious king guest room. This is a mini suite. We have 138 suites on property. Typically, we charge about $25 to $50 per upgrade for these rooms. If you want a little more space, you have it. Our guest room rates for this conference are $99 per week and $119 on the weekend. I think we're making it tremendously affordable for you. And we've also waived our resort fee, which is $25. We've included that in your room rate. Yes, sir.
Matter of personal interest, I know that, of course, in Las Vegas, they've attracted a lot of celebrity chefs to come out and open their new kitchens, their new restaurants. Anybody of note in Reno?
So we just brought our banquet chef in about a year ago from the airport down in Vegas, and we just brought in 2 brand new banquet chefs, which are also from Las Vegas. I think where we're getting most of our culinary infusion is from the California Bay Area. There's not a lot of space out there to open new restaurants, and if you do, you got to get super creative. They're doing that in an affordable location like Reno. So our culinary scene, our distillery scene, all sorts of food and beverage is just, it's making it nice to go out on Friday nights with a date. Yes, sir.
Just FYI, the time on this expires at 10/28, but I see on here that the dates listed for the 2022 convention are May 27 to May 29. Are those the only available dates in 2022 for this convention, or are there other available dates? Are there other available dates?
I would have to check. We are super busy, but I think that may be the spot where we have that amount of space. I can double check for you.
Okay, all right.
For sure.
One other thing, can you get us into the National Bowling Station?
Sure, no problem.
Okay.
No, seriously, no problem.
I know people are laughing at me, not with me.
It seems like a kind of a loose group, which is great. Yes, ma'am.
It was just
I have
renovated
a question
too.
about comps and honoring other types of points in Vegas. M-Life is kind of a big thing. People have those cards and those comp points from kind of that program. Will Reno offer or honor kind of the Vegas M-Life points and collective points, or do you have kind of your own system that our members can start looking at now, ways to earn comps? And
Great question. We have our own system. We're a privately owned hotel, so we're not affiliated with anybody else within Vegas or the Reno area. When you check into the hotel, you're more than welcome to go to the Players Club. You get a free card, you get a free spin, free cash, and then you can start collecting points from there. But we are independent, yes.
Can I just to follow up, I assume that your property also has hosts who would be happy to talk to anybody who plays a lot about.
We have some incredibly fun casino hosts, and if they have a track record with other hotels and they want to call either myself, I'll put you in touch with some of those people, and yes, we would take great care of those people.
Greg, when you talked about upgrades, you said like $50, $25, $50 or something like that?
Sure.
To a suite. Was that on top, was that what would be on top of the rates our members
That
have?
would be on top of your guest room
So in
rates.
other words, they have option, if they book that room, they say, well, I'd like to upgrade.
Sure.
As long as it wasn't locked out for us, for
Sure.
what they specifically wanted, they'd be able to do that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I know somebody's worried about this year, for national convention parking. How's the parking?
We have free parking, free airport shuttle.
By the way, isn't it free valet and self-parking, right?
Free valet, free self-parking.
And you guys have a parking structure like that?
We do, and we have surface lots too. I mean, seriously, with all honesty, this is the most affordable city I've ever looked at in my entire career. I've been doing this for a while. It's gotten me a little gray, but I've worked in resorts, I've worked in corporate hotels and things like that. And I think what we're gonna give you and offer you is a super easy way to do business, because we've been doing business on a handshake and a napkin for a long time. Unfortunately, now we have litigation and lawyers that have to step in and squish this and that, but I think
Some of our members are very fond of napkins.
So I can tell you, I think Daniel can point out on his own time or your time how easy we are to negotiate with. And when I told him, I said, we were having dinner, when he got mad at me, I said, really, seriously, you don't have to worry about this. We'll take care of it. We'll make it happen for you. And so I think he's heard that a few times and it hasn't happened for him, but I can assure you that everything that he's asked me for within reasonable power, we have done for you. There's no attrition in our contract for your group. You have the ability to increase your room block by 25% up to a year in advance of your convention if you need the extra space. So when you run out of rooms, we're still going to give you more rooms. We're not going to say you can't have any more, we're going to raise your rate.
And
We're
I
super
submit
easy
the
to do
largest
business with.
block we've ever had, by the way.
Yeah, look, can I go through like?
Actually, that gentleman's first.
Yes, sir.
Just real quick, you gained some great national attention because of the emerging growth of your neighborhoods, all
Sure.
kinds of entertainment districts, restaurants. What is the proximity of your facility to those other neighborhoods, and how inexpensive or expensive is it to transit via, ride share, any shuttles that exist?
So Uber from the airport might be $12. You can Uber from our hotel to downtown within $10. But we are located in Victorian Square, and Victorian Square has now developed two, say 5-story condominium townhome type residences. So we are becoming very residential in our backyard. Within those structures, each of them, one of them is 500 units and the other one's 300 units. As they fill up, the first floor is all retail and shopping and restaurants. We now have a brand new winery across the street. We have a brand new brewery across the street. We have a brand new chicken rotisserie across the street, which is offering wonderful, fantastic street tacos and things. We have pizza within a block. We have a great Italian restaurant within walking distance, a block and a half. We have Irish food. It just goes on and on. I mean, you can walk out of our hotel and feel like you're very, very safe and you're in a community of nice people. But again, you can Uber, ride share, whatever you need to do within 5 minutes. Reno is about this big, unfortunately, and more people keep moving in. I keep telling them, don't listen to me about how much I love this place. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sam.
I was just gonna, is smoking allowed in the hotel at all?
Only in the casino, and there's one floor. We have 29 floors in each tower, and one floor per tower is smoking. But you can smoke in the casino. There's no smoking in the lobby. There's no smoking in the meeting space.
No more in restaurants in Nevada.
And no more in restaurants for sure. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes, yes,
I
ma'am.
was just gonna say, I know we all have a lot of questions, but personally, I'm really interested in seeing the rest of the presentation.
It's only a couple more.
Hey, real quick about the player's card that you were referring to, is we also have a program called Show Your Badge. So when you all are in town, show your badge to any of the participating establishments, restaurants, bars, whatever, and you get a discount or some free appetizer or so on. So that's a program we offer too in the city.
So we've given, as part of concessions, a few hospitality suites, and this is just an example of the parlor in those rooms.
Beautiful.
This is another section of one of our suites, some of the open air This is one of our presidential suites. Our owner's putting about $250,000 into all 7 of our presidential suites.
There's 7.
This one there's 7 of them.
Will all 7 be available for the convention?
I think the bid says.
Memorial Day is going to be tough because, I mean, we've offered a couple.
2?
Yes,
2.
we've offered a couple. I mean, if we needed to talk about more, we're certainly very, very flexible with that. And next, this is our pool, brand new Chase lounges. It's open air, the window's open. It's Olympic size. There's 8 really nice little private hot tubs here and a larger hot tub. On the other side of this is a brand new state-of-the-art health club. And there it is. This is one of our lounges. So if you want to have a drink, we have 7 restaurants on property. The Oyster Bar, which is mostly seafood. Anthony's brand new chop house. We just spent $6 million opening a brand new steakhouse. Game On is a fun sports bar, pool, TVs, etc., etc. We have the Noodle Hut and Sushi Bar, the Rotisserie, Rosie's Cafe, which is 24 hours, and everybody's got to have a Starbucks. This is Anthony's Chop House. We just opened this about 6 weeks ago. Just a beautiful restaurant. 2 private dining rooms if you have groups that want to get together. This is Game On, just some of the fun activity that you can do there. This is our casino floor. Usually it's a little bit busier than that, excuse me. We just opened this brand new 8,500 seat amphitheater right across the street, and Toby Keith opened it up. It was pretty fun. Again, Lake Tahoe, this is where you're coming. This is Northern Nevada. This is what we offer, and we look forward to sharing it with you. So thank you from all of us, and I'll take some questions. Yes, sir.
First of all, ma'am, I think the phrase "show your badge" is one that libertarians would agree with.
Get a warning.
The question I was going to ask is, what conventions or meetings have you hosted at the property? Some of the clients who've been there at the convention, and how large basically were they in terms of people attending?
So, what we don't do in Nevada, or in Reno specifically, is a lot of pharmaceutical and a lot of banking, things like that. We do a lot of agriculture, ag business. For example, we were just talking, I sent Daniel an email, and we just booked American Mensa. It can range from cowboys to internet geeks. It really is, it's a huge spectrum. Personally, the biggest convention, well, some of the bigger conventions with the United States Postal Service that I brought to the hotel last year, we do a range management conference. It's about 2,000 people every 3 or 4 years. We tend to repeat this type of business. We do American Mining Association that comes in. They'll be in a few weeks. That's several thousand people. So I think what we're talking about in terms of your national convention, it's perfect for our second floor and it's perfect for our wheelhouse. It just fits perfectly. You have a chance to grow. It's private. You don't have any interference from outside guests. You don't have to walk through the casino to get to your meeting rooms. You just take your elevator down, you get off on the second floor, your registration there, your signage is there, and it's all yours. And I think you'll find it very family friendly. So, yes, ma'am.
Food and beverage tends to be kind of the area of these contracts that I tend to try to hammer down.
Sure.
But you're offering us a pretty amazing food and beverage.
We're offering you $5,000 for your opening reception. We're offering you a 10% discount on all of our menus. You can get a steak filet dinner banquet for $45.
That's the one I always look at.
Our coffee by the gallon is $42. $42. Coffee by the gallon. Most hotels, most cities, I mean Miami, I'm pretty sure it's $80, $90.
It's insane.
Without a question. We have no food and beverage minimum based on your current agenda. Yes, ma'am.
What about like advertising outside of the facility? Like how will people in Reno know we're there? Was there anything that you guys or the CBD offered?
So we have a very large highway electronic billboard. We do that for various groups, say welcome 2022 National Libertarian Convention, however you want us to do it, your logo, and that'll go up in a slide, every 20 pictures for about 4 or 5 seconds each. We're happy to do that. What other kind of advertising would you be interested in doing?
That's fine.
You got it.
I've got an idea.
Yes,
You know
sir.
that big sign that says, "Welcome to Reno," the biggest.
Biggest little city?
I want you to say, now hosting the Libertarian Party, the biggest little
party.
You know what? If that's what it would take, I can climb the. I have friends too. I got friends. Sometimes they'll drink a little bit and do crazy things. I mean, we could get the Libertarian banner put up there. Yes, sir.
It's not as big a deal in an off-year convention, but it does happen. High-speed internet, media links for reporters, space for the risers. I assume that's all taken care of. Where is the nearest studio uplink for national news if somebody wanted to do an on-site interview with, say, a Sunday morning TV program? Is there a studio in town that people use?
Oh, absolutely. There are. Do I personally know which one to point you to? I don't.
Okay.
But we can find that resource for you.
It's just a question for...
Throughout the hotel is wireless internet. It's high speed. It's just been upgraded.
Okay.
It's included.
I don't know how many megabytes it is, but it's free to everyone.
And it's in the business session hall also, right?
Absolutely.
So our reporters will be able to uplink to their networks, and
Absolutely.
any high-profile guests can go.
Absolutely. I think I have like 1 minute left.
You have about 2.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Would you be willing to provide our shuttle service in the situation that our chair is discussing? If we have, somebody needs to see Nick or Dan, and we need to get them to a studio and back really quickly.
We'll
you
take
have
you in
a
the
shuttle
Escalade, not a problem. No problem. Yes, sir.
Is how long is this on hold for us for now? And if so, how long? In other words, by what time would you need a decision that, yeah, we're going to have our 2022 convention there or not?
I would love for you to tell me today. I would love to fly back. I would love to fly back and tell my general manager, we have put so much effort and thought into what we want to do for you. And he's going to ask me, do you have the business? And I want to go back and tell him yes. So you have days, you have hours, you have whatever you need. I'll be on a plane. I look forward to getting a text from Daniel or Robert saying, we're coming to Reno. That'll be fantastic. Take your time if you need to.
Let me just ask you another question.
Sure.
Well, you're taking other people's time.
You have 1 minute.
Never mind.
Yes, sir.
I'll bring it up.
Yes, sir.
So, have you had any conversations with the Convention Oversight Committee as to where the vendor booths might be located? We've had issues with other conventions where they're on a different floor, and that didn't really work so well.
So if you look in this diagram real quick, right here, we have the grand ballroom and breakouts right behind it. This is the hallway that I showed you one of those slides. You have this entire pre-function area and this entire room right here. It's 25,000 square feet for any amount of vendors you want. It's right outside the ballroom.
I'm big on tables, and as we were walking down that particular hall, I got a little tingle down my leg, just saying. So,
you sure that wasn't?
I didn't say a tingle.
Yes, sir.
What's the weather going to be like? I know that out there it can go up and down.
May's going to be beautiful. You know, it's funny. I moved there to be a outdoor skier and alpinist. Winter brought me there. Summer keeps me there. The faucet turns off about the beginning of May, and it turns back on sometime in October. Our summers are just absolutely blue skies. It's beautiful. It's amazing. I mean, can't even tell you. But I'm out of time. So I'm happy to spend more time.
If I could just have one more question that's related to something else that the board's going to be dealing with later. You made a very generous offer if we sign with the Nugget for our the February meeting. It was going to be, I think, a $59 room rate for suites, and you guys were going to treat the LNC to Anthony Steakhouse, right?
Definitely take it to dinner. Yep.
Now the concern is if they pick it, obviously nobody can expect you guys, if we don't sign for the convention, to hold that. But if the board wanted to still come out there and see the hotel and hold the meeting, then would you be able to offer a good rate otherwise?
How many people is the board?
17.
17
17 plus 8.
We would be happy to host the board. Typically of 10 or less members, we typically do it complimentary, so I would say something like maybe a $29 room rate. Have you out there, we'll still treat you to dinner and take care of you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. And inside your we brought these out. These are some of our Nugget executive binders. In there, you're going to find 2 dice, which were used in the casino, and a deck of cards that was used on one of our blackjack tables. So, and some other wonderful things, so enjoy it.
Were they winning dice?
Yeah.
Can't tell you that.
Oh, sorry. I need a word copy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'm assuming you're coming to me next?
I am, so I'm going to start setting up. That's a good idea. All right, we will be at ease for about 5 minutes while Mr. Fishman gets set up for the staff report. And if you have specific questions, feel free and do those. But 10:35, we will start back up. I just wanted to give you the 5 minutes so that you're not rushed. Yes, Dan. You gotta let go. So I had this discussion with somebody the other day. Have you ever played catch with an egg on a raw egg? We all played catch with an egg. You probably don't remember because it's like any crossover. It's all about playing catch with eggs, buddy. Right, playing catch with eggs.
Oh, I wish I liked That's right. After a while, I can't yell.
No, that's okay, because your meeting was perfect, and I get to bring all the Thank you.
I need to. I'm only here for the beginning text part.
See, I lived in Florida my whole life, so it's your told.
I just put my other bed on top of everything else. That'd be easier for people to take
I live on East, I live there, I live where East Regional, so I have great lives. It's phenomenal. What you get out there.
Alicia, am I missing it? Is there any bad language from the toward the facility?
That's good. Ask them to make sure that there's restaurants and bars and everybody. It's always good for these conventions so that people want to take a break.
Oh, the best story is down the street from the area. Yes. I just go there and get my Thank you so much.
It almost seems too good to be true, but it's crazy.
I just have to say,
Oh, it's obviously.
Yeah, I can't see a downside. I'm just like, okay, where's the downside? Give me something. It almost seems too good to be true, but
You too.
it's really good.
Yes, thank you.
And keep it up.
Oh, I have been for years. It's my calling card.
That's how I recognize you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
So if we have ties or any like the committee appointments, do we roll dice or pick cards?
No, I think jousting.
Well, we got the cards. That's fine.
We're probably going to spend another 30 to 40 million just reading
I'll do my
There, that works. Second time's the charm. Thank you, everyone, for being attentive. We will now proceed to the next item on the agenda, which will be the staff reports. We are allocated 90 minutes. And I will turn it over to Mr. Fishman.
I need 5 minutes, please.
Mr. Fishman needs 5 minutes. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I suggest that we go to the audit committee?
Why not? Audit committee, we will proceed. Sorry he rolled you under the bus.
At least I know now. Well, we don't have a report. I'm just here because I'm tagging along with Phil.
Our condolences.
The audit committee hasn't really had anything to do until the end of the year when we will soon we'll pick Mark Fry Company again. So we will do that. I think the only thing I do have to say about the audit is because the convention's going to be earlier this year than it was 2 years ago, or 2020 will be earlier than it was in 2018. So we will have to get, the audit's going to have to get done a little bit earlier than it did in
When do you think field work will need to be done? Approximate.
I think we need an audit report no later than mid-April.
So field work by February? March?
So I've talked with Robert.
Okay.
You will be talking with Mark Fry to make sure he's good.
Okay. Any,
That's all I
Mr. Hewitt?
You know why you're not doing anything right now? Because you audit
After I get undone contacting Bill
Well, his priorities, I understand.
Oh, my God.
All right.
Long way.
Coming.
Probably do youth engagement committee as a very brief.
Dustin was gonna.
He's not in the room.
Sexton is here.
Yeah, but Dustin was going to be the one to give it.
Okay.
But that is a good instinct.
The Stewart's in the hospital. We
What?
should all, Ms. Eris Stewart in the hospital.
Oh, no.
We should all send her best wishes, and that's why there was no report.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I think Mr. Geiger's renounced Libertarian Party.
More time to focus on media. All right, Mr. Fishman?
No, I am ready to start.
Go right ahead.
Improvise a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure to address you. We had an outstanding quarter by all metrics. We made significant gains in membership, and I want to give a shout out to Mr. Smith, who has passed the 100 members recruited via his link as of the 3 that he brought in yesterday, so that has been an astonishing. We have passed 15,000 members, and I'll call up a chart to talk about that. Recently, steady increase in fundraising from shaky August, where we had a huge amount of debt come through. We had to pay out vacation pay for 2 employees who departed through different reasons. We had expenses from the previous LNC, from Freedom Fest, et cetera. We have acquired a new development team, We engaged a contractor for publication work. We engaged a contractor to run our social media. We have 2 technology projects in alpha, and we had superb election results. I want to minute, maybe not for the last time, but Eric R. Dixon, who passed away and had really devoted a large part of his life to the Libertarian Party and to the Liberty Movement. He was an invaluable addition, and we miss him greatly. So, past the executive summary, let's get into the meat of it. And I hope you guys all got the copy of this that I mailed out the first time I mailed out the quarter 2 one. You should have the quarter 3 one now in your inboxes. So if you refer back to my quarter 2 report, we had a bunch of goals listed. One of them was to get off of eye contact. One of them was to bring the member portal online. One of them was to bring LPU, which is the name for our distance learning project, online, enable 2-factor authentication, and start using G Suite groups more. We have accomplished all of those. Member portal and LPU are currently in alpha, and I'll talk about those. First one, moving away from eye contact for sending our email was a big deal. Eye contact refused to remove their logo from the bottom of the emails that we sent out. Also, it was a different database than the one that we normally use. It's not Razor's Edge. We were not doing a good job of bringing data back and forth between the 2 options, and so I made the decision that we would move away from eye contact. We have started to look at SparkPost, which the CRM is using right now, and as the member portal comes online and we start doing more and more in the member portal, SparkPost will become our dominant email for communicating with members. Razor's Edge will be our dominant email for communicating with donors. Both of them have different data capacities and we'll use them for different things. The member portal is now online. I'm actually going to wait, Andy, till I come to your report and ask you to come up and demo it. But as you recall, last time I talked about membership being a #1 priority because of the consistent decline in membership over the last 18 months. We've had a great deal of success around that. I want to capitalize on that now, and I think that we've transitioned the program from the point where we were hemorrhaging memberships to applying some good techniques into saying how are we going to improve membership, and we have done that consistently over the last 3 months. Go into that too. LearnPress versus Moodle. We want to bring online a distance learning program for a variety of different things. We want to have a candidate training program online so that a candidate can go through our distance learning program. At the end of it, we'll say, this person is Libertarian certified as a candidate. We want to have a treasurer program online. So we can say, these are the things that you need to know to be a treasurer for a federal candidate. These are the things you need to know to be a treasurer for a state candidate, etc. Put all those things online, and afterwards people can become certified. And if you are a federal candidate, then you can say, hey, are there any federally LPU certified treasurers around that might want to help my party? That I think is a real plus to us. Plus, a lot of times candidates get into campaigns and they don't really understand what's going to be involved. Having a certification process allows them to see what's up there, but also helps them in terms of donation. Dr. Lark.
Very briefly, I'm very keen to see us use online learning. I will point out, however, we've done something in the past that didn't prove quite so successful, something called the Libertarian Leadership School. And if you haven't gone back and looked at that, you may want to be sure that we don't, I won't say repeat the mistakes of the past, but there have been efforts in the past, and so make sure that you become familiar with that before we ramp this up in a big way.
I will briefly say that this goes to my direct background. For 10 years, I wrote the distance learning program that's used at Mass General Hospital, which is the teaching college for Harvard Medical School, and understanding how to deploy, but also then to get use out of a distance learning program is a critical part of it. Just having it in existence is not right. But we will invest into saying we expect these certifications to have value, and in that, hopefully, we will people will say, they're giving me something of value in return for my time in taking the course. The IT committee has been evaluating the learning process for me. It was suggested that possibly we should look at LearnPress, so they are making the decisions between LearnPress and Moodle. We expect to have something online relatively soon. I'd like to thank the members of the IT committee who are here, and Alex Merced in particular has agreed to oversee the content creation. Quick question that I will ask you later on. When we put these courses online, are they things that need to be reviewed by the APRC? I think they are. However, I think that the volume will be high, and so you guys are all gonna have to decide that amongst yourselves. The IT committee is also engaged in an audit of all the technology we're using at LPHQ, and so we're making some progress in that. We signed 2 technology deals, one with a news aggregator called Meltwater, and I'm going to do a demo of that after Andy does his demo, one with a direct mail list provider called Wyland. Meltwater is essentially super search engine for publications. So I can look in there and I can say, show me every article about red flag laws that has been written in the last 3 months in Florida. Not only will it list me all the articles, but it will give me the contact information for the reporters. So I can now submit to specific reporters information about things that we're publishing. So, for example, vaping. I'm able to look up vape.vote, send vape.vote to people who've written articles on vaping. And the search engine is fantastic. When I demo it, you'll get to see, there's a great mention of Pat's article that was in, Mr. Ford's article that was in the local Providence about the Twin Rivers Casino. It also covers social media, so it will show me almost every Twitter mention of the Libertarian Party, public posts, etc. It allows us to get a good idea of what we're doing, and it also gives us a sentiment rating. So it tells us whether or not we're being referred to favorably, unfavorably, and it's a rough guesstimate, but it's a nice way to keep track of what we're doing. Wyland is a list provider. What they do is they take the information, we and about 250 other not-for-profits give them donor list. Nobody else gets to see the donor list except for them, but they create models of what the donor list look like. They have 99.5% of the households in America. They then look at my donor list and they say, okay, I have Mr. Bazell as a donor to the Libertarian Party. Mr. Bazell also gives money to the Audubon Society, to the Professional Bowlers League, and 3 other things that I can think of. Then they find people who match that model, but are not currently giving money to the Libertarian Party, and they say, these are the people that you should be recruiting money from. So we are in the process right now of sending out a Second Amendment letter to 10,000 people who match models of Libertarian donors who are not currently members of the Libertarian Party, making appeal to them, and Ms. Congdon, who I'll talk about later, wrote that letter. We anticipate a pretty good feedback from that. So those are 2 ways that we're working to enhance our capacity.
When will we have a good idea of the return on that?
The first letter is supposed to go out in this week, probably next week, and it's going to 10,000 people. And so we should be getting feedback relatively soon from that. Our most recent direct mails that we've been doing in-house have generated a significant profit, but they've been small scale because they're only 500 letters. And sometimes it's difficult to see how long it is. 2 days ago, we got a check back from a letter that I had sent out in August. So we anticipate getting pretty good letters back. We also have a larger appeal going out via direct mail that is based on one that was sent out 2 years ago, where we ask everybody to update their information. Those of you who've been around before will remember the sort of grid at the bottom that lists all your information, what we have for you, and has the space to write in. That one returned a significant amount of money when we sent it out last time 2 years ago. In this case, we really want people's information to be accurate, because when we bring online the member portal, and I'll talk about that more later, we want to make sure that we have the right information so that we have email addresses for people and stuff like that. In my Q2 report, you can find this paragraph. The decline in membership continues. We are taking several steps to address that. We're viewing every day that we do not increase membership by a net of 1 as a failure. So because of the lag between membership, we're now looking at it in the context of weeks. If you go back and you look at the reports, we had been hemorrhaging members. This was a direct attempt to deal with that. We have completely reversed the trend, especially with the help of people who have been recruiting. We started the referral program. Anybody who listens to Tom Wood's podcast will hear that he now says on there, by the way, I think you should join the Libertarian Party. Here's a link. We are getting out there. Ms. Van Horn.
Just to back up just a second, the letter that's going out that Ms. Condon, how do you pronounce her name?
Condon, yeah.
Okay. It's addressing people that are associated with what groups again?
So this is based on our the company Wyland.
Sure.
We tell them the target audience
Yeah, I
that we
got
want to
that
reach.
part, what groups?
We don't know.
Okay.
We're not
You said
allowed to
Second
see other
Amendment-
data,
Second
other people's
Amendment
data.
supporters.
Yes.
Okay, my whole household should be on that list, but if we don't get something, because we're in Indiana, can you forward me a copy of that letter? Because I'm interested in how
I-
it's worded. We get
absolute-
tons of pitches like that from different groups.
I'm
Okay.
happy to send it to you.
All right, thanks.
Yep. It's only going to 10,000 people, so you may not get it
Oh, I'm
directly.
sure we're probably not on that list, but I'm interested
Right.
in what it says.
So, we've had marked success in membership.
Oh, you can, do you want to wait till you?
Okay.
That's next break that you said.
All right. Ms. Adams.
Mr. Fishman, that letter is gonna go through the APRC anyway, so likely members of the LNC will see it
Sure.
before it goes out, correct?
Correct, absolutely. Yeah, any publication like that. It may actually have been sent because the original draft went out about a month ago. Thank you, Ms. Billiou, for looking that up. Also, just to talk about the referral program, Dave Smith, Tom Woods, Mark Claire, Lions of Liberty, we have done a good job in increasing membership. And if you look at the slope, and I am, a math slope kind of guy, the slope is really good right now. I'm very excited about where membership is going. One of the reasons why I think that is because I think membership is the most sustainable method for revenue from us. It currently provides a very large portion. Fundraising is always going to be critical to completing tasks, but I have a belief that we can get membership to the point that we are sustaining ourselves through membership and then fundraise around specific projects. And I think that we will find a response to fundraising much more responsive when we say, I need you to sponsor this project, I need you to sponsor that project. As an example, we have a vision that we are going to put a studio in the bottom of LPHQ so that we can produce very high quality. We have an estimate of that at $25,000. I would like to be able to go to a donor and say, can you give me $25,000 to build a studio at LPHQ? As opposed to, a lot of times, I spend a lot of times calling and saying, these are the general things we're working on. I can't promise you that your money's going to go to this specific thing. No, I don't say it like that. But having very specific fundraising, I think, will be a big benefit to us. Getting membership to the level that does it would be good. Simple math thing, and I'll just finish this up. We are currently have a budget of roughly $1.5 million. We are at 15,000 members. That would mean if we had an average of $100 per year per member, we would be in the black. You'll give me a little bit of, I said this last time as well, but just to go through it again, a little bit of a leeway. $100 a year is roughly $8 a month. There's 32 days in a month. That's a quarter a day. A quarter a day keeps the government away. That's the program that we're going to start working on. To that end, we are going to start targeting members who have been $25 annual members for more than a year and ask them to become recurring members. I go through this a little bit. The basic math right now is that we have 6,658 members at $25 a year, which results in $166,000 worth of revenue. If we can convert 25% of those members to $100 a year when they renew, that increases revenue by $13,000 a month. That $13,000 a month can be spent on a lot of really good things that we want to do. So that's where our focus needs to change right now. We have, in our business of customer acquisition and our brand of libertarianism, we are getting better at customer acquisition. Now we have to start working at resales, inside sales, that sort of thing. We can do that. This is a known way of how to do things. And I talked about, we want to start segmenting the renewal program. Right now, we send a blanket renewal letter to everybody whose membership is expired. We have to stop doing that. We need to start sending segmented renewal letters saying, you, sir, have been a $25 member for X number of years. We'd like you to step up. You have been a silver member. Now is the time that you make the step to gold. We can do those things. I actually talked to Steve Daschle when he was chair. They did that via mail. Dosbach, thank you. Steve Dosbach, when he was chair, they did that. They had different letters, 7 different letters that they sent out to people along the way. We can get back to that level of data access. Mr. Longstrap.
Have you considered targeting recurring members that are already paying that monthly fee and trying to target them to up their level as well?
Yes, we want to do that as well. As a matter of fact, I'll go into this a little bit more. So I now have daily call time with the new director of development, where I make calls and try to raise money, and that's one of the things that we've been working on specifically, is she's targeting people based on their level of giving, saying this is somebody who could give more. And so I had a person, it was pretty much the easiest setup in the world, but person wrote educational software, lived in New Hampshire, and actually, as it turns out, had donated to my auditor campaign. And so we were able to get them to increase their giving. It was Harless.
Okay, a few things. With going back all the way to that online learning thing, do you think perhaps in the past that what we had done wasn't so successful because maybe it was too early? Like, that's really coming into its own now?
I think so. So I'm not greatly familiar with the LSLA project, but distance learning is now, the way most college students take at least one distance learning class. People are familiar with it. The other thing about it is that selling it for the value is a critical element, and we have to think of everything we do as sales, because fundamentally we have to convince people. I mean, running for office is sales. I don't have to tell anybody in this room that. Okay, getting our candidates better trained, getting our membership better capable to do that, part of that is sales. Some people have the fire, they're gonna do it on their own, but we have to convince people that what we're offering is valuable. And if it's not valuable, it won't work either. So we have to have good content, which I'm counting on everybody in this room for, but also we have to do the sales. Ms. Adams?
So as chair of the LSLA, I do see a whole lot of overlap between your distance learning program and the distance learning program that we are launching next month. Maybe there's a way that we can coordinate that, work them together so that neither organization is depleting available resources to achieve the same outcome.
Yeah, no, I'm not familiar at all with the LSA program, but I'm absolutely happy to talk about that, and we definitely don't want to have.
We already have the programming data and surveys done. We know specifically what our state chairs and state leadership is looking for in programming. So I'm happy to have that conversation with you if you want to have that conversation.
My critical element for this thing, just to talk about, not to get too much into the technical weeds, but I want something that people will have a portfolio so that we know all the classes that they've taken. There needs to be a certification process so that when they have completed it, somebody can look up and say, oh, it's not just that somebody's saying that Dan took this class, his certification is online at LPU. It has been suggested that the name should not be something that has the phrase PU in it, so I'm looking for alternatives to LPU, for Libertarian Party University.
Yeah, I have two more things, because I had three and
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, I usually, much too long-winded. With the membership thing, well, as you may not be aware, I was doing, Joshua and I are birds of a feather with that sort of thing. I was doing a lot of recruitment, and I've become convinced that having LNC members do it there's people, I know we don't think sometimes spending time with each other is so thrilling, but there's people who get a phone call from an LNC member and they just think they just got called by a rock star. And you will get some engagement that way. And I would highly suggest that everyone get the lapsed members and coordinate, obviously, with your state affiliate for your state. And just do some calls. You don't even need to do them all, but that's the way, I've been doing it. It's just making phone calls. And I think we could really, really boost these numbers if the LNC as a whole made a commitment to do that. And the last thing, get with me when you have a chance with that booklet you had given me, but that also brought up like the old donor letters. I've just been going through all those Steve Dasbach letters. I've got all this stuff that we're getting up on Elpedia, and one of my big things with the historical project was we can reuse some of these ideas. Money and time and sweat and blood and tears went into it. It can be refreshed. We shouldn't have to always recreate the wheels.
Let me give a shout out to Mr. Planner of the Year, Robert Krause, because when he sends out letters, they have appeal numbers stored on them. So not only do we actually have all of those letters stored, but we know how much money they generate.
Okay, awesome.
So this letter that I sent out, that's the man back there. Did you guys see the picture of him with the statue as well? The head of the planners organization came and took a picture with them. But so we know exactly that. And so in fact, this direct mail letter that's going out right now that has the fill in the thing is based specifically on a letter that we know generated $35,000 of revenue 2 years ago.
Because just even though in general, I hope you and I can work together on not just the donor letters, like some of those materials, getting those back, because there was really a lot of fantastic effort put in the past in some educational things.
There's no question about it that rekindling relationships with a lot of the old people, and so as I go into fundraising, I appreciate you giving me this perfect segue. I have been connecting with donors who haven't given for a long time. So as an example, I reactivated our #3 lifetime donor who hadn't given us money in 5 years. He is in California, but his total giving is around $250,000 to the Libertarian Party. He hadn't been with us for a while. I actually started to go back and look through older members, stuff like that. We ended up having a wonderful conversation, and then he made a very large donation to the party afterwards. But you're right, there is so much in our history of things that we have done well, being able to identify the stuff that worked. And when we have metrics about it, United that says this works, that's a critical thing to do. Ms. Michaela.
Since we're talking about revenue, we are in Miami, there's a huge Hispanic population here. Have we considered making a Spanish translation version of the website of the membership forms?
Yes, and the stuff that we have right now, I have on good authority, is terrible. And so we really need to find a way to do that better. There's a couple volunteers around who would do it.
I know one piece was actually redone earlier this year. It should not be terrible.
Okay, the reason, right, you're right. And I'm not saying that every single thing that we have is terrible, but there are things that people have come back to me and said, you know, this is clearly a gifted high school student translation, which we can do better on along the way, Ms. Harless.
And again, this is something you and I might talk outside. With this new member portal, an idea I had is if there's some way that we could encourage them or somehow incorporate the LPDA resource into it. So if these new members, to encourage them to fill out their LPDA profile.
It's a great idea.
Because our philosophy there, it's not like Wikipedia, though apparently I'm relevant enough now to have a Wikipedia article.
I did see your article.
Yeah, before they told me I wasn't, that was so soul crushing. But with LPDA, you know, if you've been involved with the LP for a second, you're relevant is kind of our criteria.
So a couple other things, Ms. Van Horn.
Yeah, you had said, and I'm reading here in your report, membership continues to be my primary focus. I personally do not think that should be your primary focus. You have a membership director, but I also don't believe that membership is how we get our best revenue. I think it needs to be fundraising, and I just want to say that I think that's the wrong strategy.
So I will tell you that this is just based on data. Fundraising is nowhere near, and never has been anywhere near, raising as much money as membership.
If it's properly done, it would be.
There is no evidence to indicate that. I appreciate that that's a thought, but I practice what I call evidence-based practice. So I use what is evidence and use that as an example as to why I would do things.
Okay.
I'm happy for somebody to show me that I'm wrong.
Evidence doesn't show a negative, so the fact that there has not been proper fundraising in the past does not show that that is not.
You're right, it is the complete absence of data, which means don't use things that there is no data to support. So I'm happy for somebody, and this actually happens a lot of times. I get, as you might imagine, 12 to 15 emails a week. Dan, I have the scheme that is going to turn the Libertarian.
Oh, God.
And
I only write 2 of them.
My general response is, show me that it works. I need $5,000 from the Libertarian National Committee to make that happen. I'm like, I can't do that. But if your program is really great, show me that it works. And I would love to have someone come in and show me that fundraising works. And to that end, we actually have some contracted fundraisers who we are paying a commission to when they raise money. The referral program is a small example of that. But that to me would be examples that we could do it. If somebody was actually motivated by cash and they were able to bring in $100,000, I'd be like, we can do a lot better in fundraising. I would like to do better in fundraising. We have a development team, a professional development team now that's going to try to do that. I believe that's the steps that we want to go.
I'm going to say something that a lot of people won't like. The evidence is the duopoly. They aren't a club, they don't have membership, and they bring in a ton of money. So we know it can be done, and I just think it's the wrong strategy. Okay, here
Fair
on
enough.
your presentation.
All right, so one thing I wanted to announce here is that we have a generous donor, we have a couple generous donors who have given us matches to the building fund. The event tonight is going to be part of our campaign to try to pay off the mortgage in the next 12 months. and I think we can do it faster than that. So we have $60,000 worth of matches lined up right now, which, if we can match that, that will put $120,000 against the budget, against the mortgage, which right now stands at $164,000, $162,000. If we pay off $120,000 of that, I believe that we can finish it off relatively quickly. I'm going to go to Dr. Lark, who hasn't said anything while I'm in this harvest.
You can put me last after anybody who hasn't talked.
In other words, if you came to some guy named Jim Lark and asked him to go for a large chunk of money, of course, because I'm just a wonderful guy, I might be inclined to give for, just because I like you. Are there any benefits, like we're going to name something after Jim Lark? Or in other words, what now remains in terms of those things that would reward people for their generosity?
It was the body's commission, I recognize Mr. Kraus in the back.
The sink in the bathroom?
Well, you know, we do have a room left at the $25,000 level, Dr. Lark, that would look with your name.
Ms. Harless and then Mr. Ford and then Mr.
above it.
Sauer.
Okay,
Right place.
two things quickly. This is probably something that's gonna get a groan from a lot of people, but I had a lot of members asking me about the old unified membership program, and if there's any workarounds that we can bring back, something like that, and I knew I was gonna get some looks. I'm one of the people who believe in that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and the second thing, on fundraising, something, a lot of the folks that are the heads of certain committees, we tend to know, there are people who might be mad at the LP for whatever, because they're always mad at somebody for something. But sometimes they love a certain project, like ballot access. There are some people who only give to that. Most of the donors to the historical committee don't give to anything else, but they like that. And if these committee chairs also committed to fundraising, that could bring a lot. I think each committee should try to commit to be self-funding.
I agree with that. I'm not convinced that it is my place to instruct the LNC members to lead their fundraising efforts, but I think.
No, I'm just blood.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
I'm gonna work on that.
Mr. Ford and then Ms. Adams, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, as someone who's new to this body, a question. You mentioned earlier that it would be great to have a studio in the basement of the facility, and I would argue that that's a tremendous investment, because if you look at Tom Woods and those organizations, their ability to churn out on a continual, almost a daily basis, information, speculation, whatever, that would have almost an immediate payout. And that would be available, to Mr. Lark's comment, as something that could be named by a donor. Why is that superseded, if you will, by the desire, this is an honest question, the need to pay off the mortgage more quickly?
So we have separate funds.
Right.
The building fund can only be used to pay for building expenses. Paying off the mortgage saves us $33,000 a year.
Right.
So just paying off the mortgage pays for the studio.
I think that was Mr. Ford's question, is why is the photo kit being split between those two projects instead of being directed solely to the building fund? That's how.
Well, I'm actually looking for the converse. You know, to me, the return on investment of a studio where we could actually produce things and actually take that, maybe perhaps part of that studio on the road to events like South Carolina would be tremendous. And I think it would actually yield additional monies almost automatically. As someone who's new to the organization, I wonder why we're so focused on paying off a mortgage when immediate cash flow seems to be a challenge.
I will definitely take that under advisement. I want to keep moving because I think people might have other questions they want to ask me as we get further on through the report. Financially, we missed in August. We didn't reach our number. September and October, we did reach our number. I look forward to our inefficiencies being addressed. We hired Tara DeSisto and Becca Congdon to form the core of our development team. They've been very good, mindful of the LNC's instructions in July to hire a 3-person team. I am interviewing one more person right now, and I will get into that a little bit, but I do anticipate the development team growing to 3 people total as per your instructions in July. Monthly outlays, because of the development department, is considerably higher. We have raised our costs, and so we will be coming to you, and this segues into Ms. Harlow's thing about the LNC being able to be more active. We will be coming to you guys. I currently do call time. The Director of Development is identifying people who have the potential to give more money, that a call from an LNC member might be more effective, somebody local rather than somebody like me. So the Director of Development and it's in her report will be talking to all of you about the potential for you guys to become more active in fundraising. Many of you have offered to do this generously in the past. I don't think that we had the capacity at the time and a specific plan as to how we are going to do it. We are going to generate a specific plan and follow that so that we know what we're doing is actually working. Operations, when Andy and Ken give their reports, we'll talk about it a little bit. We have gone slightly over budget on the CRM project, about 4%. I would say that I think the CRM project, and especially the fact that it now encompasses the member portal, is a really important thing. I would like to make sure that we continue what we're doing and talk about why these overruns are happening. One aspect of it was an idea to make it a little more professional. It used to be that when we would do updates, we did updates when our partner, during business hours. So we actually would have downtime for the CRM in between 9 to 5 on Monday, 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. I requested that we not have downtime when our members are using the portal. So now we do updates at a regular scheduled thing. We do updates if we can at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock that we can do, and then Tadpole will do updates on Sunday morning. That costs us more from them because they don't normally work Sundays, but I don't think it's appropriate for us to have downtime. That's something we didn't budget in the beginning. Building still needs repairs. The air conditioning fund, the air conditioner is still broken. Hopefully we're doing a lot of good work, Mr. Longstreth.
I just want to follow up on the air conditioner. I seem to remember if it wasn't the previous meeting, at some point it was mentioned within this body that may be able to be something covered by insurance.
We've done a great deal of research on that, and unfortunately it will not be covered. However,
we just pulled the trigger on, I just approved the contract to replace the.
Yeah, as you may know, Mr. Krause's superpower is getting tremendous deals, and he has brought that in for 67% of what we were looking at originally. Mr. Redpath.
Okay, so the deal has been cut then to fix the air conditioning?
It has.
Yes.
Okay, all right, well, that's good. Robert said something you won't need for 6 months. Well, I think air conditioners get going in
No, it's
March.
been cut, and it was a significant reduction in saving, or reduction in cost from the initial proposal.
Especially with the big
So the most recent copy of the LP News should be arriving. I hope that most of you got it before you got here. If not, it is just coming out in people's things. It was significantly delayed because of Eric Dixon's death. I'm happy to go into some of the details around that, but I don't want to necessarily talk about things that happened during a general session. But I'm happy to either do an executive session or so Mr. Hensman.
On the CRM, in 2020, how much do you anticipate it being used for campaign purposes, for fundraising purposes, and for just kind of administrative?
For the states that are in it, I think that it's going to be a very valuable tool because we're putting a lot of information into it. In particular, the best example I would say, Mr. Molman might talk about this in his report, using the CRM, Kentucky was able to start 5 new county affiliates just based on that data and saying we have these members in this area who are members of national who aren't involved at all. Maybe we can call them all, get them together, stuff like that. I also think that having the member portal part of the CRM is going to allow members to be much more invested. One of the questions that you guys have probably never heard, what does national do for local members? Well, part of that is going to be that we're going to have this member portal online. When Andy demonstrates it, he'll show you some of the value in there.
Sorry, if I could follow up.
That's fine. Yes.
So you talked about the membership angle. What about campaign and administrative?
I believe that having access to the data of members, people who are willing to support, is a big deal for candidates as well. So there's going to be value added in there along the way for really anything that we want to do. Knowing more about our members, about the people who give us money along the way, I think is always a valuable thing. Plus, having that there, again, increases the value of membership. So as we start to do survey polls, member-only survey polls, you don't get to vote in that poll unless you're a member, a dues paying member. Mr. Brown.
Thank you. To Mr. Bishop's point, we're currently giving access to CRM to affiliates who want to join the program. Are we going to open that up to candidates?
So state chairs in the CRM have access to information. So, and that's the structure, that's the hierarchy. We're not going to give candidates direct access, but candidates will be able to ask for information if they're a person who has the ability to do that along the way. But because we have a data protection policy as well, that data protection policy is enforced through the NDA and through the state hierarchy. With the exception, Ms. Foss has something that she'd like to say.
It's okay.
Does the body object? Seeing no objection, Ms. Foss.
Good morning, everybody. As you all know, I'm a presidential candidate. You were touching up on the campaigning, and that's something that's very important. My team at least, we're in the process of developing an app, and I would like to share with the Libertarian Party, because you all know the Republicans have one and the Democrats have one when it comes to fundraising, grassroots, and canvassing. And I've noticed that it's been very difficult, from what I've heard, traveling the country from the local candidates about that, about not being able to have access to the directory. Another issue that you guys brought up, I'm sorry, was the membership. There's about 60 million Hispanics in the United States. It would be great for the website to be in Spanish, for them to be able to have a form of membership that they can fill up. I'm actually just got invited to speak at the event that's going on in Spanish about the Libertarian Party.
Awesome.
And it would have been wonderful for me to be able to direct them and to have that in Spanish. So it would be something to consider as well.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I
Okay,
would put that much higher
I
on the
offer
list.
myself if you guys do need any help with translating or anything like that, because I am an educator, and Spanish is my, one of the main languages that I speak. and I
Awesome.
talk.
Thank you very
Okay,
much,
so
Ms. Fonz. I
you-
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I hired Robert Clark to be our social media director. We've had a couple of pretty big successes. In particular, the Kent State one, which you might have seen, which happened right after Beto said, "Damn right, we're going to take your your AR-15." And then he tweeted about the fact that nobody should bring guns to a rally at Kent State. So we're going to put this out. This is a big number. 750,000 people saw that Facebook post. That is an awesome thing for us to be doing. And we've had some other successes along the way. Talking about impeachment, 600,000 people. The Trumps complaining about the vaping ban, 466,000 people. Smaller ones, but relatively recently, this was the worldwide memorial of the deaths of communism, did 243,000 people. So we are seeing better reach, and in particular, our ads were at risk beforehand. We were at risk of our ads being moving into a poorer category of ads. We would have to pay more for Facebook ads because the ads we were running were constantly being marked as spam. We have reversed that trend. Ms. Adams.
So Dan, I would agree that we've seen some successes, but I also feel that we have seen multiple, many more non-successes with this social media, with the new change. So the successes are great. My concern is the increase in flops. We may have balanced the ad level temporarily. My gut says that's not going to stay. And so I'd like to know what we're going to do to bring more continuity to our social media so that we are indeed seeing more successes and we're seeing far less of the problematic things that were causing issues than we have been seeing.
For me, I'm going on evidence. You know, the numbers indicate that these are all records. We never did numbers like that before. So the evidence is indicating that.
I mean, we see those high numbers with incendiary posts across the board too, so I'm looking for more than that.
Yeah, for me, I'm just basing it on the numbers. And so based on what we're doing right now, I have some anecdotal things. Anecdotally, I have gotten a lot less complaints about stuff that's happening on the social media, but I don't have evidence of that to say that that's actually what's happening. So I can't attribute that to something along the way. In terms of our overall reach, and this is interesting too, and so this is my misunderstanding of social media, we actually had a higher reach going back 6 months ago because we were posting a lot more. However, I have become convinced that having individual posts that don't sit on top of each other so that you have one post that gets a lot more attention and is seen by more people is actually a more profitable way to work. Ms. Harless.
You touched on it a little bit. We used, I wouldn't say we never got numbers like this before because
I couldn't find any evidence of it.
I'll get it for you
Okay.
because I've been doing with it a while, but Ms. Adams, I think, had some good points. I mean, the evidence is there's been, it's great to recruit new people, but you gotta also keep the people you already have and not because, libertarians will find any excuse to go huff off. The goodbye cruel political party. So, I am concerned with some of the the things that were a little but on it, more internally wise, I've seen just personally, the volunteers that we all had before, they're not involved anymore, and they're very discouraged and feel like they haven't even, like, been given the wham bam, thank you ma'am treatment. They've just gotten the silent treatment. And something needs to change a little bit there, because they just were like, oh great, we've been serving this party for years and years and years, and now all of a sudden, nothing. And that's not the way to treat volunteers.
Ms. Phillips.
One, I would disagree with you anecdotally about the complaints, just so that's clear. I'm getting lots.
Okay.
As am I.
Yeah.
But I have a different question. Because you brought him on as a contractor, and I don't remember that being a line item in our budget for this year, I would like to understand where that money is coming from.
I would classify it under administration. The cost is really low.
Yeah, we can talk about that later on when we get into executive session, because that's another question, is that I have no idea what that cost is.
So the person who had been the social media manager resigned from the position, Jess Mears. And so wanting to find somebody to do that, I was able to find a contractor. Mr. Clark is a social media manager. He's a social media manager for the Johnson Weld campaign, but currently is also a professional social media manager for John Stossel and for 4 or 5 other Liberty groups. And so he does this professionally. He was able to convince me of the idea of he monitors trends and is able to get posts that get picked up. And so that was the rationale for why I would bring him in. Who's Adams?
I mean, I think probably we'll need to dig into this next question in executive session, just protection of staff.
Yep.
But I'm also wondering now if any of these other places that he's contracted with, if us contracting with him poses a conflict of interest based on who else he's contracted with, and that's something I'd like to discuss when we do.
Yeah, that's definitely a legitimate concern.
And also perhaps an executive session is, if that were multiple people interviewed for that position, I kind of like to know how that happened.
I can explain that.
Okay.
But actually, there was a person currently on the social media team that I offered the job to and did not accept it.
Yeah, I know about that. There's a second one that I was curious, so later.
Bishop Henson.
For sharing anecdotal evidence, I've heard a lot less complaints since we did I heard complaints every 3 days, I would say, under the old strategy, which I think was, let's get a lot of comments, let's get a lot of likes and angry reactions, and not a lot of shares. And now I'm seeing a lot more shares, which I think, I guess it's a debate over fundamental strategy. Are we trying to energize our existing members, or are we trying to go out and get new members? And I think we're trying to get more new.
Mr. Nana from the back.
Well, sorry.
Go.
I wanted to praise somebody that hasn't come up yet. Gideon Oaks, I think, is
Oh,
took over
fantastic.
for, Mr. Dixon after he passed.
Yay!
And, well.
Oh, no, that came out wrong.
Yeah. She's happy about Gideon. Yeah. I do have to say, I think he's the one behind some of the graphic design work we've done in the last couple of weeks, which is just impeccable. So please convey our thanks.
I will.
And he's a friend here.
Mr. Nana.
I also want to say you're doing a great job, but I have a question. Is it intentional that he's no longer sharing state page posts? Because that was really helpful for the affiliate. Yes, it was.
Yes, it is.
State posts, and they got much more exposure, and then we were also reciprocating that favor by sharing national posts. But if we only share national posts on the state page, that's not reach. And if the national page is unwilling to share our posts, that also doesn't work. So.
Essentially, I am not overseeing that directly. We have shared a few state posts recently. I know Georgia had one that came through. We're essentially looking for ones that we think will get over 100,000. That's what I tell them to search for. And so the posts are basically evaluated on that level. What kind of traffic do we think they will do? Sometimes, you're right, we get a city council candidate running who's Libertarian, and people would like to see that post on the Libertarian Party national page. I don't know that that's the best audience for that. Even though there's a capacity. To that end, I'm going to try to, I'm getting the hurry up sign.
I'm going to interrupt, just so everybody's clear. We are 47 minutes into a 90-minute block of time. We have special counsel's report after lunch. I've just been talking with Mr. Kraus about making that after lunch. Lunch will be set up soon-ish for members and alternates, and Robert usually has enough for guests as well. There has been expressed prior to the meeting a desire to do some of this in executive session. So we should all be mindful of our time and how we'd like to use it. Please continue.
This goes till 12:07.
Thank you. Elections, as you are aware, we had tremendous success in elections on November 5th. And particularly, I'd like to call out Dr. Moulton, who executed what is now being referred to as the Moulton maneuver, where he was able to identify races in which it was too late for a Republican or a Democrat to file, so they were open seats. And he, with Wes Benedict, contacted Libertarians, asked them to run for the race. In addition to a lot of broad races, they managed to elect 4 county auditors in Pennsylvania, who are now going to form the Pennsylvania Libertarian Auditors Group, where they will be talking about how to go after county level government and make sure that every penny is counted for. So a remarkable success. I attended the Frontier Summit in Cheyenne with many of the people, some people in this room. An enormous success. It's especially exciting to see the enthusiasm there. Mr. Bazell will cover that in more detail. I have a proposal from eCanvasser. eCanvasser is a really strong candidate support program. Mr. Bazell and Mr. Turney can both talk about it at greater length, but they essentially have offered us a very strong deal that would allow us to provide to up to 100 candidates the dominant, one of the dominant campaign platforms that's in Europe. Republicans and Democrats are locked into things they use. eCanvasser has walking lists, it has voting lists, it has call banking software, it has all the good stuff that you want to run a winnable campaign. I think this is something that's definitely worth investing in, and again, when Mr. Bazell comes up, he can talk about that a little bit as well. We did the debate in South Carolina. We tried everything. We tried to make that as professional looking as we possibly could. A great deal of effort went into it. Mr. Flood secured $12,000 worth of cameras, a exceptional auditorium at a university, which we filled pretty well. In the end, we were let down by one small technical glitch, which again, I'm happy to talk about in executive session if people want to name names, but we were 90% of the way there. For people who saw the debate, it looked really good. A couple pointers, we would put the candidates in a semicircle instead of in straight, and move the moderator, stuff like that. But I think it was the best looking debate that we put on at a state convention that I've ever seen. We're going to get better. To that end, Tom Arnold and John McCaskey have formed a company. They want to put on professional debates. Now they're going to charge for that. We're libertarians, we think people should get paid. But I would like the LNC to consider that we might pick up a small part of that cost along the way in return for the right to rebroadcast. Mr. Lark, Dr. Lark.
A couple of things. One, Mr. Flood spells his given name Stewart in a different way, so you may want to change that.
Thank you.
I don't know whether you already do this. If you don't, I don't know how much difficulty it would cause, but it would be useful for the LNC to see how many candidates are elected and then either run for re-election, and what's their re-election rate. I don't know that I've ever seen those data. My seat of the pants evidence is our re-election rate is not very high. It's useful if you can start incorporating that in a regular basis for the LNC's use. I think that would be helpful.
Outstanding. According to Mr. Bazell, 22% is our re-election rate.
The vast majority of them do not run for re-elections.
Ms. Adams.
So Dan, you're talking about this potential opportunity with Mr. Arnold's company. When do you anticipate there might be some numbers for us to look at concerning that venture? It's hard for us to consider becoming entangled in a venture without those numbers. When do you think we might have those available to look over?
They're going to put together a package. They're right now trying to figure out how to use. They have, like I said, $12,000 of equipment from the previous debate that Mr. Flood is essentially donating to the cause. And then they'll put together a package. And if it's not competitive, and I'm proposing that we pick up a small part of it, and the state parties would pick up most of it. But the state parties want to have professional debates. Some of the state parties want to have professional looking debates.
Sure.
And so this would be a way for us to offset it, but I don't anticipate the LNC picking up the entire cost. But I do think that there is a benefit for us publicizing our presidential candidates this point in the
Do
cycle.
you anticipate you'll have that presentation ready by the next meeting, or? the next-
Absolutely.
Okay.
I expect you to.
Be careful anticipating what other people will do.
Right.
Dan, I personally would have a problem with that because I don't think it's appropriate for the LNC to get involved in the presidential campaigns until we have a candidate. So I personally would oppose any effort to chip in money on that.
Well, Mr. Sarwark's point is well taken. I know that John and Tom have actually been working on this since July or June, and so I would expect numbers very quickly.
Right, and their target is going to be as soon as, I think the Georgia debate is their target for rolling that stuff out, and I believe the date is that in January. I'm going to proceed. Next quarter, I want membership to be a critical thing, and it's like Ms. Harlow has seen my report beforehand, because we're talking about the renewal rate. So this is the percentage, and it's in all of your report. This is the renewal rate broken down by month over the last year. Because of caging issues, it's difficult to say how many people actually renew in 1 month, because sometimes your membership might expire, you might renew in the next month. Or we actually ask you a month before to potentially renew in that point in time. But roughly speaking, the number of members lost, this is accurate. In the last year, 5,234 people who were members did not come back to the party. That is a tremendous amount of money. Our renewal rate, this is the members renewed. So 7,000 members did come back to the party during that time frame. Our renewal rate is running at roughly 57%, 58% over the course of the year. I'm going to set a target of that. I would like us to get to 75. 75 is a big number, but that's what nonprofits generally look for. We're a little bit different. I think we can expect better because our cause is more noble than the flightless water duck. But we can do better in terms of getting a renewal rate up there.
I think one of the things you might want to look at is conversion rates versus second or third year renewals. Typically, your biggest loss would be the first year if somebody joins. It's not unusual for it to be 50%.
Yeah.
But what you're hoping for is that for second year renewals, it's 85, 90%.
We actually have started breaking the numbers out that way as well. And so we want to put a specific effort into people renewing the first time, getting them to do a better job. Ms. Billiard.
Just taking one of the numbers that you mentioned, 543 or whatever you said, that they did not come back. Of
Yeah,
that number,
5,234.
that number, of that number, how many can we say, or what percentage would you say actually were contacted directly, asked to renew, and said, no thanks?
So it's a very interesting question because having looked a lot of them up, it doesn't seem like many of them have gotten a good contact from us. And we can do better on that. And that's part of where I want to talk about segmenting our email and part of the move away from eye contact to using Razor's Edge. Because when we email people from Razor's Edge, we specifically record this person received this email on this date. And so we'll know whether or not we're contacting these people. So I just picked a few names at random and we had not contacted any of them.
Just an observation, my opinion is, in many cases, you lose them on the back end because you didn't do a good job when they came in at the front end. You want to actually, as soon as they come in, you want them to be greeted by local organizations if at all possible. If you make the contact at the front end, typically that helps tremendously on the back end.
I feel like you also have read further down the report, Dr. Clark, because we actually, and so this comes under Tyler Harris's report, Tyler Harris has been doing the member welcome hangout. So every new member we now email and say, hey, we want you to come in, come to a talk, stuff like that. Some people, Ms. Harlos was kind enough to participate in one of the member welcome hangouts. Ms. Congdon, I believe a couple other people, as Summer said. And so we want to do more about that along the way. But you're right, customer retention is the critical aspect of what we want to do. We have improved customer acquisition. We now have to focus on customer retention and inside sales. So I'm going to go on to the rest of the staff reports. ECAM, Certain Frontier Project, Paul's going to talk about those more. I believe that we can do some good work there. We need to start planning now the details of the convention, and something I would like to ask the LNC to consider is I believe that we need to put more effort into physical security at the convention.
Oh,
Than we
yes.
have done before. And so please consider that. We are 7 months out from the convention at this point in time, so let's start thinking about that now rather than 3 months out.
Is there, Dan, is there something related to that specifically that you feel has been lacking, or just
There
in
was,
general?
so there was an event in Texas that had at least allegations that there was going to be something bad happen at it, and that made me start to think about the fact that we're going to have the next president of the United States in the room, knock on wood. To that end, I want to make sure that we are doing a pretty good job, and I often say, there's no safer place to be than in a room full of libertarians. However, that doesn't mean that we should not be professional about what we're doing, and I would like to have some professionalism around that.
Just a quick point as you move on to the staff reports. I see that they're there in your presentation, but in the email that I got from you.
Sorry, I will send that out again.
Yeah, that's, I didn't have, that's why you said it's page 17, I'm like, really?
I will resend that in the next moment.
I'm gonna interrupt again. How are we on time?
12:07, sir. 12:07 is when this item's up.
Okay, so we have about 30 minutes. I am going to let people know Mr. Clark would prefer that to the extent there is discussion of either his performance, his compensation, or the way that he was selected, that be done in open session, as Mr. Clark is not present, would rather hear than not. That is inclusive of compensation. So that was his request, and I told him I would pass it on to the committee. The other thing is, you know, time is time, and this is how much time is allotted, and there still is an interest in doing some things in executive session. So let's all continue to be mindful.
So to that extent, then I will point out that our contract with Mr. Clark is for $100 a week. I had offered the same contract to somebody else who'd been on the social media team. They did not want that contract. Mr. Clark then became my second choice. I truly believe that it's good to pay people to do a professional job, even if the payment that you're making is a nominal stipend. And so I wanted to pay somebody to do this job. All right, let me move on. I want to jump very quickly, Robert's report. Robert, do you want to say anything to this, or?
You can go on.
So roughly speaking, our total revenue, and one of the things I want to talk about too is our total expenses. August was very high. September was low. October was low. Year to date, we're on track to raise about 1.4 million. 1.5 million was the target. Fundraising, August was a bad month for us. September and October, we averaged about 113 in September, 112 in October. We're pretty happy with the number that we did. Mortgage balance is currently at 162,000, and like I said, we have a potential option to pay that off. We've done our FEC filings, the convention. LPHQ strongly encourages you to pick the location for the February meeting at this meeting. There's all sorts of financial reasons for doing that. There's a letter that I will send out to all of you from the new Director of Development, Tara DeSisto, in the staff report. Andy, you want to come up and do 5 minutes? And in that time, I will send out the rest of the staff report.
Thank you,
It
sir.
is all in the OneNote, just.
Okay.
I'm just letting people know.
Yeah, OneNote's hard for me to get from my phone. So
Yeah, I'll send it out. No, just a minute.
I don't think the complete one is in OneNote, because he referenced a page 17 for me.
He's just got them concatenated.
Yeah, I don't have a page 17 though.
Right.
Because he slammed the PDFs together.
No.
No.
There should be a page. It's 187 pages long.
Yeah,
I don't
no.
know why it didn't come out, but I'll send it.
Yeah, no,
I
this
sent the
one's
wrong
only
one.
like 10 pages or 11 pages.
Yeah.
Let's let Andy talk.
I will try to be as efficient as possible. It's how I try to do my job every day. Sometimes I talk in fragments, but that's what computer people seem to do. Before I get to this, I will cover our county dashboard development we've been working on with Tadpole. It started last September of 2018. This gives counties access, and that's in production, but this is still in alpha, as Dan said, so when I get more mixed text, someone else can do content, I don't do content. So when people log in, The goal here is you have Razor's Edge as the donor database. As CRMs have changed over the last 10 years, people used to just have the donor database, email marketing system. They just have everything fragmented. Now everything is getting more integrated. Really everyone wants everything integrated. So now all the national members will be in the state CRM. It should, I mean, we started with 5 states in 2017, and then we've grown to 20 states. We have 12 states that want to be on yesterday. We don't have enough resources to get them on as quick as we'd like. So that'd be 32 states. But all this, then this would basically put all the national membership data in the CRM. States would get automatic access to this data at lifetime. For years, I have no idea why we haven't given states lifetime access, because we need to be working as a team. So anyway, membership portal actually solves a couple issues all at once. So people log in if they're a lapsed member. How it works: if you're lapsed, we throw you to a you need to renew page. I'll show you that. If you're a current member, you go to the normal landing page. Now I'm going to try to make it as efficient as possible. I can send any login. My intention was to send you all logins. I didn't get around to it. I did send the membership committee all logins and access. So just like a member would get, gave you a welcome email and you can log in. So what does it do? You can update your information. While we do send snail mail letters out, usually that is more for a fundraising appeal. It's a digital age, people can update their information. It is not hard. We've done this with candidates this year. We send out a checksum link, it's called. You do it via text message or email. And these candidates respond super. The ones that are active, you can tell which campaigns are most active. They're the ones that respond within an hour. They've all responded. So you can do the same thing with our whole database. You can send out a checksum link, and it'll basically auto-populate someone's data. So that's one way, but you can see this is just my test contact. I didn't fill it all out, but it shows my name and I have an email. I can continue to populate more of my data. So when you log in, it does the same thing, and people can update their info. They can update their preferences on how they want to interact with the national party. And we'll get to that. They also can change, what issues matter to them, and so they provide more feedback, or they provide more and deeper information about what really matters to them. So if I go here, this is obviously on WordPress. So on the top right here, here's all your functionality. You can check your membership status, preferences, contribution history, event history, change password. So if I go membership status, my test membership, there it is. It's active. If I want to, let's see, here, preferences. How many times, as everyone said, maybe I don't want LP News in paper form. I just need digital. Let libertarians decide for themselves. No. Do it right here. So you don't need to force feed them things they don't want. Give them options. So basically this is how you get segmentation. You first have to understand what the member wants. So I want to receive all email communication, or I'd like to choose. Do I want to hear more about campaigns? Maybe a building fund, store persuasion, whatever it is, pick what you want. That way we're not inundating them with tons of messages that are maybe turning them off, and just we want to turn them on with what we want here. So there, you get the idea of that. We also homepage here. Issue profile, we have this alpha, so it's giving Dan and everyone else a flavor of what we can do. So you go through and you can do an issues inventory. This is now how you achieve issue segmentation when you're marketing to your members. You go through, this is very much like iSideWith. You fill out the thing and then it tells you, well, okay, you're really into privacy, but how much does that actually matter to you? If you can agree on something, but it not be your number one issue. We can do surveys. So with a re-up surveys, you can set archives. First example, this all integrates right in the database. Part of my job and why we have 20 states on the CRM and why we can have 50, it really does 51 technically, right? it does not matter to me if I have 20 or 51. It's maybe a little bit more support, but we always, if we get the same question, we could create a video and a wiki that's, go ahead.
Andy, does a state have to be on the CRM for a member to participate in the member portal?
Nope.
Okay.
So when we load up, we will, the good thing is it'll make it a little easier to bring on some states. We'll still have to migrate their state data, but the national data will already be in there. Let's see. It's a couple other areas. You know, we need to drive, what do members, we want to re-engage them with. So when I'm talking member welcome hangout, I don't have anything here because, you know, when I do my testing, I don't want to spend time wasting, you know, loading things in here again. But member welcome hangouts, all the national conference calls, anything that we can engage them further, we put it front and center right there.
And allow them to get emailed about that. They can participate. I want to know when there's a new webinar.
Exactly, yep. And just multiple touches on how they get information. This is something that I kind of wanted to append to it and add further value. I had a few examples, and now it needs to pass. It's an example, but volunteer opportunities. There is a lot of things. Everyone says, I don't have enough volunteers. You can load up any, you know, ballot access, all the ballot access drives, all the campaigns that need to get on the ballot, need any campaign support. This can be used for party and candidates to request support. So I did an example of the Cedar County Fair in Iowa, you know, next on July 9th, 2020. This is my far out example. Click the link. The nice thing about this is not only we say, you know, do you want to volunteer? If you say yes, that's really not good enough data. You need to know who's volunteered and what kind of volunteering, how much time they spent, and, you know, did they do a good job? And did they show up? Because some people say yes and they don't show up. So you mark those in serum. Were they a no-show or did they show up? Now you're starting to build a database. As Bill knows, he knows a lot of petitioners in a lot of different states. We should all have that in the database. So now here's all the petitioners we can call on for Illinois to recruit. And we're not just putting out a blanket message of, hey, who can petition? We already know who can petition. Just go ask the people that have proven and have a track record of doing signature gathering. So when we click on the link, it leads me through. So the goal here is states can add it. When states are on the CRM, they can add a volunteer opportunity. They set it up, it's like a Sign Up Genius link. You know, people have created those. And it will log, say I want to volunteer. The state adds it. I actually have it rolling up to the national site, but it will also be on state sites. It's all integrated. So I can then say, hey, I want to volunteer for the Cedar County Fair. I click sign up for that shift, go, and it'll log it as I'm going to be doing a tabling activity on this date for this much time. See, then the person should show, did they actually show up or not.
Quick question, Andy, where are you pulling that information from?
The
volunteer stuff, like how did you get that information that there's an event like here?
It's all
in
state driven.
State driven.
All the states will be adding it. So, let's see, so that was the volunteer portion. And when we scroll down to the end, I think I'm getting closer. So just more call to actions. Haven't finished this, but basically we do not have enough county affiliates. We don't have them trained well. We need a handbook. Some states like Florida actually do a really good county startup guide. So basically, we've now, first of all, we need to know how many county affiliates we have. We are now starting to track that and getting affiliates to tell us what affiliates are active and all the relationships. Who's the chair, who's the board members, who's the treasurer, all that. They're saying, when they actually became that position, when they ended it, this is how the CRM should work, and this is how a party management database needs to start. So,
quick question in the back.
Yep, go ahead.
Hey Andy, I have a question. Thank you for all this. This is really good. So if a county affiliate wants to have their own setup, do they have to get approval through their state affiliate, or can they do it directly?
What do you mean their own setup?
Well,
This.
like their page and stuff. You were just back in your previous slide here. It was like getting a county or page set up and stuff like that.
Okay, yep, that's all. It's every state has a site.
Okay, so-
Counties, actually this rolls into the county dashboard that we have, and we're very focused on the data centric. I'm not big on county websites. Counties
Right.
don't need websites, really. They need a donation page, basically.
Correct.
If you want
But-
earmark it.
But the state affiliates need to get on board before these counties,
Yep.
if they want to.
State affiliates get on board, and then now what we've just implemented on Wednesday
Yep.
is county affiliate access to lifetime data in their state. So we can say, are you, if you're a county affiliate leader or a volunteer, it doesn't matter what
I'm a
level.
county chair.
Yep, if you're a county chair, I can give you view and update access on your county, and your state person would
But I
access.
need to get my state in it.
Your state has to be in it,
involved,
yep.
yeah.
And
Your
then-
state chair has to approve you as a
Yep.
county.
Right, right.
But now, we basically have a system where I don't have to do anything. We've set up the process where all of the residents in your county are in the system, and basically we add you as a volunteer relationship to that county organization, and now you inherit those, you can see the
That
people
data,
in it.
yeah.
So, and then we
Brilliant. I
have a
love this.
dashboard. I'm not logged in, I'm not gonna take time
Right.
from other people.
Thank you so much, that's really
Yeah.
good.
But if you do look at my, I have 2 links in my staff report.
Which you should all have now.
YouTube videos, help desk, so when people log into WP admin, they have a playlist of, like Sam, I know they did training in Iowa or in Indiana of candidate training, to create a playlist of here's candidate training. We do the same thing for volunteers, and take a look at that. It takes 5 minutes for a county volunteer to get involved and start doing things in the CRM, and about 10 minutes for a county leader. So take a look at that. That will show you, it basically shows all the membership, state and national, lapsed and current. So that, that is what every county leader keeps saying, we need this data, and why is national data not up to date? How can we access it and update it for them? Now we have that process, so I think I'm probably at my time limit.
Thank you,
That's it.
Andy. Andy's been working really hard.
Andy, I've gotten a ton of positive feedback about all the work you're doing, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
So next I'm gonna call up Apollo Pizzell to deliver his report, and he has a proposition. My window? Yeah. I can get you. And I'll just sit here and scroll and talk.
Thank you. Thank you guys all. So a lot of my report is strategically sensitive, so I have provided you guys our printed copies that you can review, and I'd be happy to answer questions, but I do have to do it on a little bit of a vague basis after what we accomplished last year. We do have Republican Party leadership in multiple of our states. Multiple states, Republican Party leadership are watching what we're doing. So we do need to be a little bit cautious about the strategy. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the goals that we achieved, or for the last quarter, the goals that I put forward for you. Identifying municipal candidates for 2019, we did that for 8 candidates. I was able to recruit 8 candidates. We did put a pause on that because we don't know. I didn't know what level of support we were going to be able to offer them, because I don't want to overpromise the candidates that we're recruiting. So we did pause at 8. The goal will be 10 primary targets, and then the initial plan is 10 additional targets. The training of candidates has begun already. So in 2018, our biggest weakness was we started too late on training our candidates and getting our candidates aware of what they needed to do, and providing them the resources necessary to be effective later in the campaign. We were basically starting in June, when really campaigns should be starting a year before. So right now we're only 350 days or some amount away from our election cycle. And with those candidates, what we're working on is teaching them how to be fundraisers, teaching them how to articulate libertarian values to their district. We sent out we've done surveys. We've contacted 10,000 doors in the districts that we did, the primary districts that we're targeting. We've contacted 10,000 households and have done surveys based off of and asking questions on what issues are important to them, if they know their elected officials, things like that. That data is going to be used to micro-target messaging in those districts, and we've already achieved that by starting a year early. So that's one great thing that we've already accomplished. We've set fundraising goals for different frontier states. We did have the Frontier Summit The Frontier Summit was set in Cheyenne. We are going to do another one because it was tremendously successful. The goal of the Frontier Summit was, there was two goals. It was to bring the candidates together to start their training. It was the pre-campaign phase training, telling them what they need to start doing now to be effective candidates in the following year. We had a very large number, a surprisingly large number of candidates and prospective candidates show up to that event. The second day, we were testing to see if we could monetize this in any way and see if there was, if we could get speakers, if we could pay, if people would pay to attend. It cost around about $3,100. We had each day, we had 2 days, 3 meals catered each day. It paid for itself, so it was profitable. It costed the LP nothing, either at the state level or the national level. And so I was very proud of it. We will be doing it next year, probably in Wyoming again. We did, I'll come back to eCanvasser before I get into the strategy in more detail. For about a year we were working on it with eCanvasser. The woman's name is Offie. She went to another location, so we started over. But we did come with a pretty good deal with eCanvasser. The idea is for a test, right now we lack a campaign software. We don't have a software that can be utilized to go door knocking. We don't have a campaign software that can effectively be utilized for phone banking or anything like that. So what they've offered us as a test proposal is for 100 candidates, and it's at $3,000, $3,500 a month. It is a good deal for what we're getting, and I'm willing to answer any questions. What that is that will give us full access to that's all voter data, full access to the walking app, the plugins for MailChimp, the plugins for CallHub. It gives those 100 candidates access to all of that. SMS, yep, the SMS, text, yes.
Is there a contact limit to how many contacts be uploaded to that account?
Not for this program, it's unlimited.
And it's 100 candidates, or
Mhm.
campaigns,
Mhm.
limited data?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Knowing that this is just for a question for the future, they've said 100 candidates, have they given us pricing if we decide to scale that up?
They have, so we talked about unlimited candidates, it's $7,500 a month. 100 is our trial.
Okay, well, I was just trying to get a feel for that, thank you.
Yeah, and pricing also would change between election years and non-election years. So non-election years, we'd be paying 50% of that.
We also
you know what I mean, odd years.
Right.
We also discussed the option of having states do a buy-in, where we maintain it at the national level, and then states do a buy-ins on that as well, but that's still being fleshed out with the reps from the canvasser. So this is just an initial proposal.
Right, and that's going to be the mechanics that allows it to work at the FEC level.
Right.
For FEC filing states, they are the ones who will have access to it, and then their candidates. The FEC states can make donations to us, and then through that context, provide access for their candidates.
Okay. We go down to the additional accomplishments. Let's see. So we hired the canvasser. We contacted 10,000 doors. That was very effective. I was very happy with that. We did also send out Christine Stenquist to try to. So what we were trying to do is we were trying to find partners at the state level who are running initiatives and who have effective voter data that we do not have. A little bit more micro-targeted marketing data for each of the voters. And one of the ways that we did that is we contacted medical cannabis in Wyoming, medical cannabis in South Dakota, recreational use in Montana. We reached out with Christine Stenquist, put her on a tour, and we have now negotiated deals with those organizations that the LPs of those various states will be partners in accomplishing those ballot initiatives, and they will receive full access to the data files that they have. So it's a data sharing compromise that we were able to accomplish with that as well. So that gives us access to upwards of, I think it's 3 million names and micro-targeting data, yes.
I assume that these organizations have run things by their legal department so that they know that they understand that there may be implications to the extent that they're involved with political parties.
Correct. Yes. And that was the goal of doing this, is so that we could find organizations that were friendly. Of course, the most friendly were the marijuana organizations. They were more than happy to participate with this. So that was very successful. Christine has also, we're working with Dan on the possibility of, she's been a member since 2003. She's a remarkable activist. For those of you who don't know, Christine Stenquist is a brain tumor survivor who virtually single-handedly led the charge to get medical marijuana legalized in what most consultants believe to have been the most difficult state, which was Utah. It was incredible what she was able to do. And so she's willing to assist us in the parties leading that charge. Okay, and I can give more details on that later. Okay, so the 2020 goals, so we'll be targeting the 10 to 20 races, depending on what we're able to accomplish at this meeting here. We are in communication with our donors. We are working to get more resources added on top of this, but I do want to make clear that these candidates, to accomplish what we did with Bethany, they're going to need support. We are a year out. They do need some more support. They're in small districts. They're in small states. It's not exactly easy to raise the amount of money that they need. They are going to need support from us. We have wonderful candidates. I wish I could talk more about them publicly, but I really can't. We have candidates that are in your proposals that I gave you. We want those candidates. We'd like to win 5. Okay, so it's a very attainable goal. We're targeting about 20. We'd like to win 5. I believe that we can do that. Now I want to caution. The candidate that everyone wants to talk about the most is Bethany. I want to talk about what the Republicans have. I want the perspective to be there about what we're up against this time around. The Republicans have woken up to what we were doing. They recruited the county district attorney to run against Bethany. Her name is Ember Oakley. She is the sister-in-law of a former United States Senator. And she is a very effective and eloquent speaker. I still think we're handicapped to win that race, but I want to make sure that everyone is clear that we're playing with the big boys now in those states. And not keeping up with that level of support will be harmful. We need to be able to keep up with the major parties in those states. I will tell you that the resources that the Republican Party has in the state of Wyoming are still very limited. And we still have the chance to outdo them and outflank them. We just have to be diligent about how we do it, and that's outlined in this proposal. And for the most part, I would be happy to talk to you one-on-one for strategy, but for the most part, I can't give any more details that are in the program. But I am willing to answer any questions that you have. Yes?
These are all state rep level or higher?
State rep. Yes, no higher than state representative. We might do one state senate race. Oh, there's one portion that I left out. I apologize. In order to not stretch myself or Kara or anybody on the staff too thin with these targets, we are incorporating the state chairs and state leadership of surrounding states of demographically similar states around the country, who will be working directly with us to emulate what we're doing at this project level in their states. So they'll be on phone calls, they'll be in training sessions, they'll be working with us, the state chairs, state campaign managers, political directors will be working directly with us so that they can replicate these strategies on their state, at their level, without stretching staff too thin. So for instance, I've given Montana, South Dakota, Utah, Idaho, if they respond, Alaska, and I'm going to be speaking to Hawaii tomorrow, asking them to find 2 candidates each in their states that they would be targeting that we would provide support to as well. Dr. Lark.
I apologize, perhaps you've already addressed this. In the past, it has not been unusual for, if one of the legacy parties knows that we are actually starting to make inroads, they actually toughen the election law, the ballot access law. Are we seeing anything like that in states?
We are fortunate. I think that we will see that in 2021, but fortunately in the state of Wyoming, they have 2 different sessions. They have a budget session and they have a general session. During the budget session, all that can be discussed is the budget, and fortunately 2020 is a budget session.
I guess I can't reference the number because it's a secret document, but you pass that document with a number at the very bottom.
Yes. Oh, the budget.
So let's say that's 100%.
Okay.
How much is coming from what the candidates are raising? How much is coming from other contributors in the Mountain West?
Sure.
And then how much are you asking LNC?
So if you turn to the last page on that, it's the budget. I've divided it into candidate contribution and party contribution. And that's how I categorized it. So if you look at the candidate contribution, I've asked them to give, let me refresh my memory.
That's the right-hand column.
What was that?
Third is our
Right, so it's 74,312 is what I've asked for the candidates. That is 10 candidates raising roughly, well, the average for a win in that particular state.
Yes.
Can I ask you
Is there anyone else seeking to be recognized to ask a follow-up question? Because I wanted to give them the hard one. This basically is Region 1 and a little bit of Region 6.
Yes.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of having the National Committee support a project that primarily will focus on a single part of the country rather than on the whole country? Specifically in answering that question, don't answer it for me because I don't matter, but answer it for the regional reps who represent regions that are not touched by your project.
Okay, so the idea here is that this is a starting place. This is where we test the waters to see what works and what doesn't. Why? Because it's affordable. These are places that we can afford to do this. We can afford to make an impact without breaking the budget, without breaking the bank. If we were to try to emulate this, what we're trying to do here in other regions in the country, it would not be financially possible at this time. It limits us severely. That's number one. Number two, we will not be just limiting to those regions. I've asked Tennessee, who is on board. We have targeted candidates in Tennessee. We've reached out to Nevada. We've reached out to California. California would like to emulate this with their smaller areas. We've reached out to places that are not in any region. Idaho, we'd love to get them on board in the project. So we are growing, and the idea here is emulating successes. So this is not about us trying to, if we try to spread this across the entire country, we don't have the resources to do it. I'm telling you now, we don't. But if we start now, start here, show some success, show some proof of concept, then states and regions can replicate this on their own with guidance from national. So it's a high initial investment from national that will hopefully, and the goal being, to decrease over time and spread throughout the other regions in an effective way. Yes?
I have one follow-up. What are the caps on contributions to, I believe it's Fremont County is the primary vehicle?
Yes.
How much can a donor give?
Unlimited. There is an unlimited donor, and they will not be, their reporting period, as long as they donate after January 1st of next year, the reporting, I guess, from December 1st of this year, they will not be revealed until after Election Day of next year. We have incredibly lucrative laws. Yes?
And this is more towards the other regionals, and one thing I would add in the equity thing, why do something that's mostly in Region 1, is I had always been complaining in the past that Region 1 has ballot access and we're not expending money on ballot access in that region. So it does kind of even things out, because Region 1 for a long time was going, why, all of our dues are going to pay for ballot access elsewhere, we have it.
Right.
So
and I will point out, Region 1 is huge. So,
Yeah.
so it's hard to get outside of that circle.
Yes, I'm going to follow up on what is partly Nick's question and your excellent answer on in Region 3. Of course, this isn't something that will affect us directly.
Actually,
but
Mark Rutherford and I are talking about how we can
Let me
replicate
finish,
this.
let me
Sorry.
finish. Okay. So, it's not necessarily going to directly affect us, even though you may be talking to people, in
Right.
this area
Right.
for future things. I'm 100% on board with this, and I'll tell you why. I used to live in Montana, and anyone that has been to Montana knows that part of this is there just aren't very many people in these states. So that's a lot of what you're doing is in smaller groups and smaller accessible stuff and all that. It's brilliant, because this is what we need as a whole. When I say the whole, the Libertarian Party, the National, we need successes. We need something, like you said, to show the path, to show the way, to put out hope for people to say, and to announce to the major parties, like, here we are. You're getting their attention. That's good. We want to be like in their face. We want to win. And so, whatever it takes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Time, Mr. Chairman.
Chair briefly stepped out for a call of nature. Might there be a vice chair or?
Since Alex is not here. I move to extend until 12:15.
Second. It's been moved and second to extend till 12:15. Is there any objection? Hearing none, extended.
Good job, Chair.
There you go, T-Rex.
Yeah, I'd just like
Oh,
to
yes.
point out something too, that, this total package here is about 1/3 of what a minimum would be for one seat running on the street. That's actually about a third of what I said. And so, what you get is you get L's behind the name, and you get a potential to have multiple wins. So that's why I think why we're up there. I don't care, I'm nowhere close to Wyoming. I wanna see Glenview else behind them, and I think this, we've given money before, and this is not a good example, but if we've done more, I think we gave quite a bit of money. And that was for one person in one deal, so this one is, I mean, strategically, gains a heck of a lot more, it gets more bang for the buck.
Thank you. Aaron?
So, Paul, I like the idea of this, right? I like the picture that it kind of paints in my head in a lot of ways. At the same time, I represent a region that's not going to see immediate benefits from this, even though it's a region who since 2016 has states that have gone from not having ballot access at all to having 5 elected libertarians, one of whom won his seat in a 3-way race by 63%. So how do I tell my states that they're gonna be overlooked in this because of the grand vision?
Sure. So what I will say is they are not going to be overlooked. If they want to participate, I would welcome them on the calls. I would welcome any state that wants to join in our strategy calls so that they can emulate it directly. The problem is I can't stretch myself that thin. But I'm very happy to have any state director anywhere in the country join our calls, and I will assist them as well in emulating what we're doing in their states and in their region. I want every state participating.
I'm gonna wrap you up,
Okay.
in last 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
You guys
Thank
know
you.
where all
I
this
appreciate it.
is.
I have one question. You may know how to answer this too. So in the proposed budget, we have money in it for the canvassing. How much extra are you asking for the candidate support line item to implement this?
How much extra are we asking? So right now, candidate support is, I don't have the budget in front of me. Right now, I do have it right here, actually.
102,000?
Right now, it's 102,000, so what we're asking for is an increase, and with salaries taken out, it's in the $40,000 range. So we're asking for an additional $40,000.
40,000.
So I'm gonna screen through the rest of the staff reports very quickly. Please read Becca Congdon and Tara DeSisto as the new members of the development team. Tara, thank you.
Tara is Tara, Kara is Kara.
At some point, I will.
Yeah, right, right.
Kara's report is excellent. You know, she had a lot to do with the success that we saw at the local levels, including contacting candidates. Talking about her election, the election results were really good. The travel she did, she also did a candidate training event, which David Demarest wrote me a personal note about that's up here, where she talked about the event. It was Kara, Andy, and Kevin Goggin. Very well received event. David talked about the fact that it was really invaluable. They had snags along the way in terms of planning. Every snag they immediately ironed out, did a good job. This is the sort of thing that the LNC had expressed in their last meeting that they wanted to see more of. We have now done more of this. It is a successful model. We should do more of that.
Dan?
Yes.
Just real quick,
Mr. Phillips.
she did it in Region 6 because she lives there, and as a proof of concept. And I would 100% say that it was a flying success proof of concept. And so if you want to have it in your region, reach out to her and reach out to Dan, because it was great.
So, more on your thing about candidate intake, candidate training, we ran a live stream during the election where Kara and Tyler Harris had different guests on. Mr. Stark was on, I was on for a while. Other candidates came on, very well received, and a lot of people commented on how excited they were that we were doing something like that. Live stream going out to our audience on Facebook, which ties back into social media where we build a larger audience. Kara points out that her hours were cut to 20 hours last cycle. She feels a need to have 40 hours. LNC can consider how valuable that is, whether or not we want to allocate more money towards that. This is a note that she wrote out. She sent handwritten notes to every candidate, many of whom, when they received them, posted them on Twitter, saying, "I can't believe I got this wonderful note," a couple days after the election. Gideon Oaks is taken over for Eric Dixon. It is a remarkable coverage of Eric's skill set. Gideon is also a publisher, WordPress guy, incredible graphic design guy. but he's also a very good idea guy. So we've come up with a lot of really good things we've been doing, including issue-specific websites. So if you haven't checked out vape.vote or lp.org/vape, lp.org/anti-war, lp.org/impeachment, we have been able to quickly turn around issue-based websites, put them up on our social media with a large reach, get people to come through to those sites. That's what we want to do, and we want to pledge those things out into larger things. I truly believe, and especially with Scott Horton joining up, that anti-war we can make into a much larger landing site. You know, we have our three big issues that we talked about before in AmericaAtPeace.com, 22 trillion, which we now have 23 trillion.org online, taxes or tariffs. We want to build these out into larger websites, but also we want to have the flexibility to very quickly throw up an issue-based corner of the web and have people start driving to that. Ms. Van Horn.
You know, Lauren Daugherty had a site that was like the national debt one.
22trillion.org.
Yeah, these other sites, was this getting his idea, because this is really a good idea?
So we are capitalizing on the idea of issues-based
Yeah.
sites. He was the one who did vape.vote.
Kudos to him. Yeah.
Well, Lauren did a lot of the heavy lifting in the beginning, but Gideon has been fantastic at doing that stuff, and his ability to turn them around. Very skilled thing. In fact, we have another thing online right now. We just encourage people to go check it out. WeDeserveBetter.lp.org. That's the most recent one to come up. It is specifically designed to appeal to people who find the impeachment process alarming.
They do all believe it's alarming, yeah.
Exactly right.
If there's not objection, we'll continue for 5 more minutes to finish out the actual reports, so as to not give short shrift to any particular staff member. Oh, I didn't hear an objection. Keep going.
Membership report. Ms. Mears talks about the fact that she set an autonomous goal for membership to provide 80,000 each year, each month, which if you look at it, this is what I was talking about before, that membership is the lion's share of what we're doing. Becoming smarter about the amount of money that we're getting out of members, asking them to give more, doing some wealth research that we're starting to have with the development team coming online, saying, you know, we have members who have been giving us $25 a year for a long period of time, who, now that we do a wealth research on them, have a much larger capacity to give, that sort of thing. We can do a better job on that.
I have a question about this graph. Can you tell me why the other line is down so far on the graph? What caused that drop?
I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things in here, so I actually have a better breakdown from Robert's report that I can follow up later on.
Well, I mean, the yellow columns, right, that's non-membership, non-convention revenue. Why have those dropped so much? Do we know?
Well, so we haven't been, you know, absent a development director for a while. We weren't particularly good at doing that. There are other things about it. July, for example, I solicited a $29,000 donation in that month. That's why that number is so big there. And this is a great example. If you look at the consistency of membership and you look at the great fluctuation between the other, that's why I say the other is not particularly sustainable in terms of something that we can base a budget on. Membership is a big thing. So these are giant donations. Somebody make a maximum level donation. That doesn't happen to us a lot. For example, in this next month, you know, we're gonna have this giant match campaign. It's gonna be potentially bigger than the rest of the budget. Ms. Van Horn.
I have a question that an LTIN member just sent me. This is someone who is involved in the vape community. They wanted to know, and this is a good question for everyone, the page that you talked about on the vaping issue.
Yep.
Has membership come from that page? Have people gone to that page and then joined because of us? Does anyone track that?
Yes, so we know specifically, and actually it's an expensive membership because we are giving away a t-shirt on that. So if you go to lp.org/vape, the minimum level there is $50, but we are giving away the iVape t-shirt. Those were very popular. We were also for the first...
The conversion to membership, though, is what my question was.
Yes.
Yeah.
We tracking that.
Okay. Is that a number that we have available somewhere, or you can send?
Not right this second, but I can send it to you.
Sure, I don't mean off the top of your head.
Yep, Mr. Phillips?
You wanna scroll back there for a second? Okay, so just, you know, once again, I'm gonna have to disagree with you a little bit. Noting that what a huge difference just one donor made those 2 months, and how we have had a fluctuation level of thousands of membership differences And what a big difference just a few donations made versus what the little difference that thousands of members made, that perhaps in a more of a focus on fundraising might be appropriate. That's what that graph shows me.
I agree with you that it would be great to have major gifts take off. We have these people who gave major gifts, they've given major gifts for a long time. I rekindled a major donor. That's a lot of this number here in September. $10,000 of this comes from one donor. We want to do that. Our capacity to do that has been questionable and inconsistent. So last report I have is Tyler Harris. Tyler's doing two things. As you know, he was in membership. He's taken over control of the LP store. We have a vision that we will start looking at drop shipping for the LP store. We would keep some things in-house, but there are a lot of things that we shouldn't be doing. We are not a t-shirt sales company. That is not in our core competency. We should be doing things that are in our core competency. We can outsource that. We can still see it somewhat as a source of revenue, but the most important thing about a lot of the merchandise that comes out there is its effective being out there in the world. Having it being able to done in a more effective method, sizing, stuff like that, we're going to look at possibilities for doing that. Our current provider has a storefront that will work for us. They're willing to cut us a great deal. We're going to look to try to get out of that business as much as we can. We'd still do literature and publication. Mr. Phillips.
We had a gentleman come and give us a presentation on outsourcing not very long ago. And Ms. Doherty was very anti-outsourcing with some good points and some I disagreed with. So just to keep that in mind, but while he made an interesting presentation, I'm going to put out here publicly that I would not recommend using him as your vendor.
Fair enough.
I just was gonna bring up the same thing, that if you needed that information of the.
We are in the process of doing a pretty thorough investigation. These people that we're looking at right now are our current t-shirt vendors, and the difference essentially would be that rather than buying a large order, outlaying capital up front and then selling it, they would essentially be able to do print on demand, which alleviates a lot of our stuff. Plus, we have never actually calculated what is the labor cost for us putting a t-shirt into a bag and shipping it out, stuff like that. We can do a better job on those sort of things, I think, and that is not, it's not in our core competency. And having worked very briefly with Mr. Thexton, whose report I would encourage you to read, he is a great resource. I would rather have him do much more valuable things than packaging t-shirts.
Any more reports?
That is the end of the direct reports. The ones that I skipped over, I would please ask the party to read in depth, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. But that's the core of all the staff reports.
Mr. Fishman, we're all done.
Mr. Phillips.
Thank you for all this and thank you for all the hard work you're doing. Yeah, I would like to make a request that we get these reports a little quicker next time.
Yes, I apologize.
Because it's hard for me to read them and then have good questions for you now.
I thought I'd actually sent them out beforehand. Apparently, I only sent my report.
But even then, I only got that this morning.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Hey, look, I'm back. All right, we have exceeded the time by a bit. I know there's a desire to go and, well, actually, I don't know anything. As I've been reminded by people on occasion.
You know where the restrooms are though?
I do know as far away as humanly possible, without putting them in the other the meeting rooms with the tax professionals. So, I believe lunch is in the room across the hall. It is available. If there is somebody who would like to rise into executive session, purpose needs to be stated. Time cannot be officially limited, although there's lunch across the hall. We expect to come back in order at, I believe, 1:30 by orders of the day.
Mr. Chairman, can I move we break for lunch and come back to session at 1 p.m.? Wouldn't that be enough for lunch?
Well, you're missing something that I'm trying to signal, but I'll make it explicit. If you guys want to do executive session related to the executive director and staff report, it would be advisable for us to do that and allow our guests to go have lunch while we're doing that, and then we rise from executive session to go eat, and then we come back at 1:30. So you have a time certain by which we should be back in order, and there's food available if you can be concise. Is that clearer? Basically, we're going to go into a secret meeting, probably, if somebody asks for it, and we're going to stay in it as long as everybody wants to stay in it. But the food's going to be across the hall.
And there ain't pretty much left. Until the guests eat it all.
Yeah. We can move it.
You can move whatever you would like. I'm telling you how. So we have also special counsel's report, budget, and a bunch of other stuff. So, Mr. Phillips?
As we've already got the special counsel's report immediately after lunch, that portions of which may be in executive session already, why don't we just go to lunch, come back into executive session, start his special do his portions that will be in, and then move on?
No. That is inappropriate, because his report does not necessarily have to go into executive session, and so we would have to know why to rise into it.
Gotcha, okay.
Other than that, I'm okay with allowing you guys to have food in your executive session. I wasn't gonna, because it helps focus the mind. But if that's what you guys would like, we can go recess for lunch at 12:25. We can come back into this room and then immediately rise into executive session at, say, 12:45. Does that work?
Yes.
Has somebody asked for an executive session?
Well, no one's asked for it yet. Does anyone want it?
Yes.
Hey, look.
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, to be first in line for food.
Yes, that would be necessary. What, Mr. Hayes?
For the non-proposal portions of the convention oversight committee report, I mean, I think we'd be willing to do that during lunch as an option as well.
I don't think that that's an option that the committee would like to take. But I will ask. Would you guys like to listen to the convention oversight committee during lunch and then push our executive session related to the staff report to some future time later in the day?
No.
They would not. So what I would ask is that now we will be, I will take that. Who is moving us into executive session? Just
Well, you had Mr. O'Donnell and Ms.
Mr. Phillips. For what purpose?
To discuss matters regarding employment and compensation that came up around the status report.
Okay. And so I will take that as a motion to move into executive session starting at 12:45 p.m. Is there a second for rising into executive session?
Second.
There's a second for Mr. Redpath. Is there objection? Hearing no objection, what we will do is the meeting will be adjourned at this time. I would ask LNC members to go get their food first and then find their way back in. All recording devices and streaming need to be turned off for the portion that is executive session. And here
So
we are.
it's 12:27, okay.